Hey guys, Ripper the Rage here. Hope you're having a fantastic day, and welcome to another movie review. This time, it's Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. Now, a couple of housekeeping things, a little bit of a preface as well. So for housekeeping, you may notice the snap was not in this one. We kind of just went right into it. That's because I have a new headset. With a new headset comes a new mic, and this mic is actually clearer, a little bit better. So the snaps probably won't be in my stuff going forward for my intros. It'll probably just roll in. I might try and make an intro for it. Not sure how the edit on this is going to look, but that's why. So let me know if the audio is worse, if it's better, if you think I should try and change it back to the old way. But yeah, I'm still testing stuff out with that. On to the preface of the actual review. This review is going to be mostly negative. Just letting you know that right out of the gate, it's going to be a mostly negative review. So, if you want to go see Shang-Chi and you want to waste your money on it, and I use the word waste with all intention here. If you want to waste money and go see this film, go ahead and do that now. Don't listen to this review because this is going to be mostly negative and telling you the truth about this film. And in that truth, I am going to be stating factual things about the narrative, about the characters, about the world, and these things may upset you. They may come off as some sort of misogynist or racist or whatever, right? That's not my intention. Whatever ist you think to associate with this review, that's not what I'm going for. So I'm just squashing that right now. I'm not here to attack any particular group or person unless I call them out by name. So if I have a problem with Disney, I will say Disney, blah, 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 blah. If I have a problem with Simu Liu, I believe his name is, the main character, the guy who plays Shang-Chi, I will say Simu Liu, blah, 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 blah. Moving ahead. So unless I state a particular person or group by name, it is not directed towards anyone. It is not meant with any negativity towards actual people. This is about the film and how the film exists and what is in the film. So, without further ado, let's dive right into it. We got a couple of things on the list here. We're going to go over the narrative, then we're going to go to the cinematography. Cinematography, for those that don't know, is the camera work, the fights, right? So the fight scenes, the characters, how they evolve or the lack thereof for all of these characters, and the general way they exist. The messaging, which is gonna be a spicy one. Oh, tune in for the messaging on this one, because there's a lot to say about it. Shit that made no sense to me. That's a category I have in here. That's just general things that are just completely illogical and make no fucking sense, and my brain can't quantify it. And then we have, of course, the final verdict at the end, where I'll assign a number rating on a scale 1 to 10, and I will give my kind of slug line, single line, one sentence ending to it, and kind of cap off the review. So, first and foremost, the narrative. Before we get heavy into this, I want everyone to know this is going to be spoiler. All right, this is going to be spoiled to fucking hell and back, guys. So if you haven't seen the movie and you want to see the movie, trust me, there is nothing to spoil here. There is no big twist, nothing of interest, nothing in this narrative that you need to give a shit about. So I can't really spoil it because there's nothing to spoil, but if you actually want to go watch the movie for yourself and you want to waste your money on it, then be my guest and avoid this review until afterwards. But if you want to hear the reasons not to go see this film and why this film is a failure, go ahead and stay tuned. We're going to talk some spoilered stuff. I'm going to talk about every aspect of this film as thoroughly as I can, and just to give you guys a sense of what my experience was with this film. So, without further ado, here's the narrative. So the narrative begins with Shang-Chi's father, and I do not remember his name. I think it's Wenwu. I'm not sure. I remember there was a Wu in there somewhere. So for all intents and purposes, I'm just going to refer to him as Wu. He'll just be Wu. So Wu is Shang-Chi's father. Just remember that going forward. So Wu is this conqueror guy, and we're rolling the clocks back 4,000 years. So he's ancient China, right? And he has the 10 rings. Now, several problems with this. With the narrative itself, but just going down my bullet point list here, things are going to jump around a little bit, so stick with me. I'm not going to go beginning, middle, end. So let's just kind of go along with what my notes are. So my notes are that he's a 4,000-year-old conqueror guy, right? So he's the rings. These rings give him different powers, right? If you don't know about the 10 rings, each of the 10 rings has a different ability to it. Things like strength or speed or able to give you energy blasts, and one of the rings actually grants the user immortality, which is how he becomes this 4,000-year-old conqueror who establishes his little army force spy ring. I don't know what the hell he calls it, but he refers to it as the 10 rings. It's this covert organization, kind of like Hydra and Shield was. It was kind of like that underground thing. People didn't really know about it, so I don't know. But the whole point I'm trying to get at is this guy, for some reason, stopped conquering the world. Now, mind you, this dude is whooping total ass with these 10 rings. He is in a world where gunpowder doesn't even exist yet, so there's not even a threat to guns. Not like it matters, because later in the film it shows that he is able to block bullets anyway, so it doesn't matter. But these guys got swords, they got bows, they got axes, stuff like that. This is feudal China, ancient China stuff. So while he's doing all this conquering, right, you would think that he would continue to expand his empire and eventually conquer the entire world. No, he just chooses not to do that for some reason. He chooses to take the stealth approach, which from a strategy standpoint might make a little more sense to try and create an empire in the shadows that is generational and sort of he is the monarch of, or is the monarch? I would just say the patriarch, probably, yeah. So the patriarch of this sort of ring of assassins and stuff. It's they're like assassinations and stuff like that, and they shape world events. That's the vibe they're going for. The only problem with this is that they show none of it. They show a total of about 4 or 5 clips over the centuries that kind of indicate what he's doing. There's 2 clips in feudal China, one where he assaults a temple, which is really badass and a great start to the film. And then it goes to this more personal fight in a forest where he's just kind of showing off that he can whoop people's ass with these 10 rings. And then it goes to this, it skips ahead of a couple of centuries and goes to like Napoleonic. I assume it's a Napoleonic era because they cut this guy's throat and throw him off a castle, and he's wearing like a Napoleonic uniform. You know the kind with the white waistcoat and the overcoat that's blue with the red trim, that kind of stuff. And then they skip a little bit more ahead, and now they're modern with guns and they're assassinating people with sniper rifles. So that's kind of how they show it, which is unfortunate because everything is already explained as they're showing it. So instead of showing it and letting us figure stuff out for ourselves, the mother of Shang-Chi is narrating this entire thing as a story she is telling Shang-Chi when he's like a toddler. When he's a toddler, I don't know, he looked to be about 6 or 7, something like that. I'm not sure. So she's telling him this story. Now, the problem is that the story is super loose, right? The overall narrative of the whole film is that way. And it's over-explained, right? And the way the mother narrates it, it just sets the tone for the whole thing. Every time there's a question about something, a character will have a flashback, a moment where they monologue about it, or or just a general acceptance of the world, or a quick hand wave. That's about it, right? So that's kind of the narrative of this film, right? And it starts with the beginning where the mother is narrating all the events that we're visually seeing on the screen. And it's not like a well done, like, oh, here's like a cool picture book, right, that she's drawn for her kid, right? She got a commission and she's got a cool picture book to show her kid, and it's got awesome artwork that's like, motion graphics on the screen. That'd be kind of cool if that was like a little bit of that and a little bit of narration. That would have been cool. But no, they show full visual clips, which is just a mistake because that means they could have actually filmed some scenes to explain this stuff, but they just didn't give a shit, which is hilarious because I don't know what the budget on this thing is, but dude, you have Mickey Mouse money, right? You could have gotten a decent budget to film a couple of clips, right? There are indie projects that make sure to use their timeline properly and to show, not tell. But okay, moving past that, moving past the loose story idea, there's some things that seem to indicate major plot points which are dismissed or they have no real conflict. One of which being this masked figure. He wears this sort of theater mask, I would say. I'm not sure if the term kabuki theater is the correct term for the mask that he wears. He wears this sort of red and white mask, and he's covered head to toe in this blue ninja suit. And he was basically the enforcer when Shang-Chi was being trained as a child, and he would physically harm Shang-Chi. He would cane him, and he would like spar with him and shit. And Shang-Chi sort of looked at this guy like, oh, this guy's a total asshole, and my dad is an asshole because he let him beat me up and to teach me how to be a man or whatever, or to train me, right? And you would think that would make for an interesting sort of resolution of them coming together later in the film. This guy is mute, by the way. The mask wearing guy, totally mute, says nothing the whole film, right? Doesn't do much either. He's just kind of there as a plot device for Shang-Chi to hate, right? But there's never really any stuff like that that goes off. I mean, you have a lot of tension between father and son that is resolved in one big CGI fuckfest of a fight in the end of the film, but there's no real payoff because of what happens to Shang-Chi's father. He gets like killed by what the real villain is, right? This demon soul-sucking thing, which I'll get to later. But that's the problem, is a lot of this film, major plot points, like his sister being mad at him being mad at his father, Wong showing up out of nowhere, right? I'll get to that in a minute. But just that's the kind of vibe it has, is that they set up a lot of things that could be resolved or could be expanded upon, and they never do, right? They'll expand upon the general narrative, and everything the audience needs to know, they will tell them blatantly to their face, and leave nothing to imagination. Excuse me. But then they will go on to just say, oh, this thing? It doesn't matter. This thing? Doesn't matter. Oh, this thing you thought was interesting? Doesn't matter. And that's just kind of how they do. So if you have questions about this, as you naturally should have questions when you see something come up in a film, if you're paying attention to a film, you should always be questioning, okay, what's going on in the film? And if your question is not immediately answered of what is going on in this scene and why is it important, then the film is kind of failing, because it should be giving you minute-to-minute sort of, not really updates, but you should be understanding the scenario as it develops, right? You should be forming this narrative in your mind as you see it play out. But they just don't do that. And then that leads me to the next point, where they just hand wave away a lot of these questions. Any question you might have. Why is Shang-Chi's father this much of a dick? He's the Conqueror guy. Next. Like, no real background on it. Where did like Shang-Chi's father get the 10 rings? I'm gonna skip down the list here a little bit, but this is kind of part of the hand waving. In the beginning of the film, the narration from the mother says that Shang-Chi's father, Wu, right? We're just calling him Wu. Wu got these rings either A, from a temple, he stole them, or B, he found them in a crater, like a hole in the ground, right? So implying they either came from space or were already here in a temple, which also probably means they came from space and were revered as some kind of cult icon. And that's just fucking dumb, because that makes nothing concrete, right? That tells me nothing about Wu, how he did it, whatever. You want a stronger opening to this? Okay, I got you. Real quick, watch this. Wu is a simple farmer or some sort of curious lower class citizen, right? And one night he's out, I don't know, like coming back from a hard day at work or something, and he looks up at the sky and he notices 10 stars, like shooting stars. And he's like, oh, okay, that's weird. I haven't seen that many before. And then one of them seems to get closer, and then some of them start flying over his head. And one of them just comes straight down and lands in front of him, right? Now imagine, this is not in the movie. This is what I think should be in the movie. And then imagine this lands in front of him, and it burns this small crater, and it looks like it's smoldering hot from the atmosphere. And he goes to pick it up, but it's actually cool to the touch. And he holds it. And then when he looks at it, and he breathes on it, it realizes that it's in the presence of a sentient being, right? Some mystical bullshit, right? It activates from him breathing on it. Think Fifth Element, right? And then it, like, hovers out of his hand and then goes over his hand onto his wrist. And then maybe this is, like, an invincibility ring or a strength ring. This could have been used to show him going quickly. This would not have needed to be a long segment. maybe 5 to 10 minutes. You could throw some fight scenes in there and just show him generally learning how to use these rings. And then you could show how he goes and acquires the various rings and forms the 10 rings and starts his little empire thing. That would have been cool. But no, like, you literally could have shown how each ring operates, established rules of how they work, and what he's going to do with them. Like, that would have worked. But no, they don't do that. They're literally just, he got him from a temple or he found them in a crater. We don't fucking know. They just don't know, right? The mom, who is married to Wu, who I assume they've had a lot of pillow talk and have discussed many, many, many things together. He apparently never told her exactly where he got the rings from, which is just makes total sense, right? That you wouldn't tell your significant other your life story, the person you're supposedly so in love with, that the thought of resurrecting them from the dead, which is the main narrative plot point here, is that he wants Wu, the mother is dead at some point, and Wu wants to resurrect her by breaking open this gate. Spoiler alert: it's not really the dead mom talking to him. It's actually some soul sucking demon, but we'll get to that later. So that's the plot point, right? That's the big plot point. And you'd think if you love someone that much, you would tell them every single thing about yourself and you would share an open dialogue. Nope, nope, we just don't know where these rings come from. Anyway, I lingered on that point for on, but basically the questions are hand waved away just because the plot has to move forward. Another point is when Shang-Chi gets attacked by some assassins, and now he has to go. He had gotten an invitation, or he got something in the mail from his sister with it, just like a picture of this dragon that his mom had a toy of, and then an address in what I assume is Hong Kong. And then he's like, I have to go to my sister. And then Katie, who is his like best friend, played by Aquafina, I think is the woman's name. I'm not sure. His obnoxious friend, mind you. This woman is obnoxious, but we'll get to that later. Not Aquafina. I'm not. I can't speak to her actual real world self, but the character is fucking annoying. So she's like, no, you're not going here without me, right? Doing the typical, you're my friend and I'll go with you. Because everyone seems to have watched Lord of the Rings and decided that every Frodo needs a Samwise, right? Okay, fine. You want the friend to come along, great. Except he explains nothing. She insists, you'll explain on the plane. And like, he doesn't want to explain it. He doesn't want to bring her along because it's dangerous. He's trying to be a good friend and keep her out of danger. And yet, she's just like, I'm coming with you. Why? For reasons we will get into later. But shit like that. In the moment, it makes no sense. Every action these people take really doesn't make sense in the moment until it's revealed that they just needed to do this to get to the next part, to get to the end. And that is bullshit. That is a terrible film when shit just has to move along for the sake of moving along. So the next thing I want to talk about is Wong, right, in the narrative. This is still in the narrative section. Wong is essentially a reverse Chekhov's gun. He is entirely useless, but they show him anyway for nothing more than nostalgia's sake and to show that it's connected to the larger MCU. Mind you, the timeline here seems to be the like actual impact of Endgame, right? So after Endgame, all of this is all happening after Endgame, right? So that seems to be what the time frame is, and that I only know that like nothing indicated that. I only know that because of a comment one character made about half the planet being snapped away, and the post-credit sequence. One, there are actually two post-credit sequence. One, the first post-credit sequence, which is Wong and Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner, not the Hulk, Bruce Banner, shit you not, he's back in human form. And the reason I know this is after Endgame is because his arm is in a sling, like he broke it, which is what happened to him in Endgame when he tried to use the gauntlet to undo shit. He snapped his fingers as Banner Hulk and it busted up his arm. And he was in a cast, or like a sling. And so now he seems to have unhulked himself. Great, cool, don't know why. But yeah, that's basically it. Wong appears in a fighting arena when Shang-Chi goes to see his sister. Turns out his sister is running a fighting arena in Hong Kong in this skyscraper, right? I'm sure you guys have seen the trailer where they fight on the side of the skyscraper with the bamboo scaffolding, right? That it's in there. And then Wong is fighting this lizard-looking big fish creature guy. I don't know. And they seem to be buddies that just hang out and fight for some reason. And there you go. That's Wong's there. and then he doesn't reappear until the very end of the film. Okay, cool. And when he does reappear, he tells them literally nothing. It is the most pointless post-credit sequence you have ever seen in your life. Then off of Wong onto the actual narrative of how does the movie end, right? So the hero wins, right? Obviously, Shang-Chi defeats the evil demon, whatever. But there has to be this sacrifice. They sacrifice a bunch of people you don't give a shit about. And the worst part is afterwards, after everything's said and done, Shang-Chi and Katie are back in San Francisco. By the way, they live in San Francisco. So they're back in San Francisco talking to their friends at a bar, which is how the movie started. Which is how their part of the movie started, which was them going out for drinks with their friends and telling them stories. And now they're telling them this story, and Shang-Chi literally says, "We lost a lot of good people that day," talking about the fight they just had, like, I don't know, like a day ago or some shit, not sure. And it is the most flat, stupid line because I literally audibly in the theater said, "You didn't know any of them. You knew them for like 5 minutes, right?" There were so many moments during this film. This is the only film where I ever out loud proclaimed, "Go fuck yourself, film. What the fuck are you doing? You're not really going to do that." And what the fuck was that? I said a combination of those phrases various times while watching this film. That's how shit it is. It makes me physically have to outburst my anger at what I'm watching. So yeah, that's that's what I'm talking about. This is pointless sacrifice. You get to know none of these characters. You care for none of them. Even the father, right? Even Wu. Wu is supposed to be this bastard villainous character who tortured his son into being an assassin and stuff and like trained him. He was supposed to be a bad dad, but I actively sympathized with the man and thought he was kind of badass. And then he just kind of dies, and I felt nothing. Even the guy, like that, he was the most sympathetic character, and I felt nothing. There was a moment when Shang-Chi's sister is about to get yanked away from him and eaten by this soul-sucking demon, and he's like, "I won't let you go." Am I supposed to feel something? Like, your sister fucking hates you because you left, right? You left when you were 14, and you left her there with the father who, I guess, just ignored her. That was what was so terrible about her life. We'll get into that later. But point being, the hero wins. Some people die, but you don't give a shit because none of them are important, and none of them make you feel anything. The story, right? It doesn't show he got the rings, right? So I've already gone over that. So many better ways you could have shown how he got the rings, or even just told us definitively where the fuck he got the rings from, instead of wishy-washy being like, "Oh, he got it from a temple or he got it from a crater. We don't know." How the fuck do you not know? You should know. The audience needs to know. That's important information. Excuse me. Sorry. Let me get some water. I haven't done one of these in a while, if you can't tell. Okay, so next up we have... Oh, the ending of the film. When Shang-Chi, his father's trying to open this gate, right? This big sealed mystical gate, and he's punching it with the 10 rings because that makes sense. It's mystical shit. I'll give him a pass for that because, it's mystical rings. They're very strong, so he punches it, and that knocks this physical gate around enough to start letting these demons out. And these are like soul-sucking demons. And there's a bunch of little ones that start coming out, and he doesn't see them, but I give that a pass because they're like coming out in a hole that doesn't even realize he's opened up because it's like 100 feet above his head, so he doesn't look straight up at it, doesn't hear him or anything. He's tunnel vision. He's like beating the shit out of this wall repeatedly. So that's fine. But then later, Shang-Chi like flies on this awesome dragon over to where he is, which is kind of cool. And it's kind of cool with the dragon. And then instead of having the dragon just eat his dad, or not even like maliciously eat him, but just like pick him up by the scruff of his neck and like throw him into the river or something to get him to stop beating the shit out of the wall, Shang-Chi decides that he's got to throw down with his old man. So he jumps off the dragon, does this sick maneuver where he just kind of like hits the wall and scales down. When I say sick, I'm speaking sarcastically. This was so fucking stupid. Where instead of have the dragon fly a little lower so he could just drop directly on his dad's head, he just kind of like smacks the wall and grinds on it for a second, and then drops like, I don't know, a solid 20, 30 feet, if I recall correctly. He was a bit up there. And then just kind of lands in front of his dad and knocks him out of the way. And he's telling him, like, Dad, stop, you don't know what you're doing, blah, 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 blah. All this shit. Not once does he think to tell his dad, hey, Dad, look behind you real quick. If you don't believe me, look behind you, right? Look at the demons. Look at the demons you're releasing from this wall. Doesn't think to say that, right? Just pleading with him on emotion alone when you have facts and fucking evidence right behind you. All you had to do, Shang, was tell your fucking father to turn the fuck around. It was not complicated. This was shit writing. It made no sense. If I'm trying to tell a guy, hey, don't do that, you need to believe me. Here, look, there's evidence right behind you. Just turn around real quick. And if he wants to think he needs to destroy the wall, make a deal with him, right? Plenty of movies do this, where it's like, hey, you don't want to believe me? Fine. I'll get out of your way, and I'll let you break this wall down. But first, just turn around and look. And that would have ended the shit right there. It could have just ended the problem. Would have been like, oh, shit, okay. So then they have this fight. It's CGI heavy, not a lot of actual physical contact blows, not a lot of weight to it. Fucking sucked to watch. And then the thing just busts out, I guess, because it harvested enough souls from the village that it was attacking with the little demons, and they were bringing the souls back to it in the wall. And then it busts out of the wall, right? Because, of course, we have to have the big monster fight. So yeah, that's that, but we'll talk about that later. And then there's the Iron Gang idea, right? So the reason that Shang-Chi's mother is dead is because these guys called the Iron Gang. I don't know if it's supposed to be kind of similar to like the Hatchet Gang in Kung Fu Hustle, because there was a Kung Fu Hustle poster on Shang-Chi's wall in his apartment in San Francisco. So I don't know if that's supposed to be a reference, because Iron Gang, Hatchet Gang, it's kind of the same thing. And they show up with like a bunch of guys. And then the mom, of course, gets killed because there's like fucking 30 of these guys, right? And, okay, fine. But they say the stupidest fucking thing in probably this whole movie, which makes no damn sense. They say, oh, where's your husband, right? Because this is when he's living normally. He's not he's not like the warlord guy anymore. He's put the rings up in a box in like a safe. He's not doing that anymore. He just wants to hang out with his wife and his kids, which is commendable. It sympathizes him, actually. It makes him like very sympathetic as a character. But yeah, so Wu is away doing something, I don't know. By the way, where they live on this compound up on a mountain. So presumably the Iron Gang not only found out about this compound, but I guess hiked or drove up to this mountain, like literally up a mountain. It's on the side of a mountain. That's extremely inaccessible, but okay, sure. So Wu is away for some reason they never even said. And while he's away, they murder the wife. They leave the kids alone because I guess, sure, they agree. They're like, we won't kill the kids, but somebody has to pay, so we're gonna kill you. They don't think to stick around to kill Wu when he gets back. They just leave. I'd really like to know why. I mean, you would think if you're gonna kill a guy for being a dick to you, you think you would like kill him, kill his wife, burn down his house. Maybe not kill his kids. That might be a little far. But if you're really wanting payback, just killing his wife is gonna piss him off because you know he has these rings. Why wouldn't you try this? And the worst part is that we've already established that Wu is a badass warlord that is 4,000 years old, right? And he takes no shit. We literally see in the beginning of the film how he rolls in with these rings to like absolutely demolishes a whole like little company of guys that are protecting this temple. Not company as in a modern company, but this is back in the beginning of the film in ancient China. A company as in like a bunch of guys with spears and shit just defending this temple. And he is busting the shit out of these guys with the rings. And he busts them up so bad that when his men actually move in, all the other guys just surrender. They're like, fuck it. This dude came in, whooped Timmy, Tommy, Daryl, and Dennis's ass, and he just busted the door off of our temple. This big stone door, just broken in half like it was nothing with one punch. Yeah, we're going to surrender now, and I guess they joined his army. I don't know. But that just proves that over the centuries, he is a ruthless machine. He is efficient. He is a warlord in every sense of the word. And yet, he somehow attacked the Iron Gang without killing all of them or destroying them so badly they wouldn't even think about coming after him. This would be Machiavellian, right? Machiavelli said that, you know, if damage is to be done unto a man, let it be so severe that retribution in any shape is not to be feared, right? So if you want to kill a man's son, right, you do it in such a to punish him, you would kill the man's son and cripple the man, or threaten the man financially, or so. You do it in such a way that retaliation would be worse for him than what he could possibly gain in vengeance, you know? So that would be Machiavellian, right? So with the Iron Gang, if this was actually Wu, like the warlord Wu that we know, he would have demolished them. It wouldn't have been this, he tried or he failed to destroy us. No, Wu didn't fail at shit. He chose his battles very carefully, clearly, or else he would not have had this organization running smoothly for 4,000 years. So, yeah, completely fucking stupid part of the narrative. And then the last part for narrative is that there's a lot of ups and a lot of downs. The ups of the film are the fighting moments. The downs of the film are any point with dialogue. I shit you not. Every time someone opens their fucking mouth in this, it is a guaranteed minimum 5 minutes of just talky, adding nothing to the story, giving you nothing in the way of performance, emotion, or anything. And that's not to say any of the actors are particularly bad. It's just that nothing they were doing was adding to the story or giving me any emotional swelling. It was just stupid. It was the kind of thing where I'm like, shut the fuck up and go back to fighting, right? It's those, if you ever watch any Jackie Chan movies or any martial arts movies, really, it's those moments where they're talking and they're not doing anything goofy. Excuse me. Not doing anything goofy in between. There's not some joke being made, or there's not some other thing. But that's the thing, is they were making jokes during the dialogue, but they just were not fucking funny, right? It was boring. All of it was boring, and it all hit on a very low tone. It just it just wasn't any fun, right? The fighting, even though the fighting was pretty shit overall, I have to say, even that was still more enjoyable than the dialogue, because I'm there to watch Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. I'm not there to watch Shang-Chi and the Gossip Girls, right? I'm not there to watch Shang-Chi on The View, you know? I don't want to see Shang-Chi sitting around talking. I want to see Shang-Chi whooping ass, because that's what he's good at, right? He's Shang-Chi, the master of Kung Fu, I think is what they refer to him as. In the comics, at least back in the day, his title was like Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu, or Master of the Furious Fist, something like that. Anyway, it was a focus on martial arts, man. Like, I'm there for that. And again, the trailers lie, right? So, like, let me say that outright. The trailers are a complete fucking lie. The martial arts in this movie is minimal. It's minimal wire work, minimal traditional fighting. Now, they do go through the motions, do the moves, but it's not impactful. It's not fun to watch. It's just fucking boring. But even the fighting, right? The spectacle of the fight was still more interesting than anything that came out of anybody's mouth in this entire movie. Nothing was of interest. Okay, so that's the narrative done. We're going to move on now to the cinematography. So, cinematography, for anyone who's not a film guy, is just really a fancy way of saying how the camera moves and where it's positioned, and you know, its angles, like high angle, low angle. Is it moving? Is it not moving? Is it a one shot or a oneer, right? So that's where the camera doesn't cut; it just moves with the characters around the scene to show you all the stuff. So that kind of stuff. So first up on this list is that the camera moves far more than it should, and it cuts so much that it becomes fucking confusing. The bus scene, right? They love to show that off in the trailer. What they didn't show you is the bus scene in full. So the bus scene in full has moments where it's really good. I refer to the bus scene as the bus scene and the cut in half bus scene. So the bus scene is when they're first in the bus and the guys start attacking Shang-Chi, right? And he whips off his jacket, and he does that classic Jackie Chan move where the guy grabs him, but he whips off his jacket and uses it to tie the guy's hands and then kicks him. Okay, that's cool. Even one of my favorite parts, actually, one of my favorite moments, like only 2 moments that felt really good to watch in the fighting, was when he turns around and he like spin kicks this guy, or like hits him so like I think he elbows him. I think what it is he turns and he quickly impacts him with an elbow to the chest, and that like causes him to spin into a 180, and he knocks his head off this fucking as he's falling away, he hits his head on a like one of the beams on the bus, like one of the bars you hold on to while it's going, one of the safety bars. He hits that and then collapses into the seat next to him and bounces off that seat a little bit and into the aisle. That was a cool moment because it's kind of this big impact, boom, boom, boom. You know, had a good energy to it. And then there's God, what else is there in this bus scene? I mean, again, it's some close quarters fighting, a lot of tight angles, but even then they kept cutting shit. And it's not like Jackie Chan never cut his films, right? But the way he cut, the cut always played to the fight. It played to the impact. He would make sure to include a certain amount of frames when he would cut in close for the punch to make the impact seem bigger. That is the kind of shit this was sorely missing. I do not understand it because for all intents and purposes, they were like, look, this is going to be a martial arts film. We're going to have this stuff. It's going to be great. We've got they literally had the if I remember correctly, they literally had the choreographer from Jackie Chan's stunt team, the best stunt team in the fucking world for martial arts, literally, and any stunt really. Like these guys are pros, and they had the guy who does the choreography for them working on Shang-Chi. You think it would be amazing. Now, I don't know if they let him do all the choreography he wanted to do, or if they were tying his hands behind his back and telling him he can only do certain things. But still, like, there's effort here. You can tell the actors put in the time to learn choreography and learn how to fight and how to, do their punches and kicks. And it felt good in the technical aspect. You could see that they knew what they were doing fight-wise, but the camera never showed it because it was cutting way too much for a fight scene. And then the camera was like doing these weird oneers where it would do a oneer sometimes on hits that really didn't do it. And it was a lot of unmotivated movements sometimes. There was like the camera would be swiveling around a guy while he's going the other way. So it creates this weird anti-parallax effect where it seems he's standing still. So it doesn't even really work. I don't know. I don't know. It's all very blurry because there was just so many bad fight moments in this film that I just don't, I don't like it. I just that's just bad camera movement right there. Some shots were tight, like they should be tight, but they were wide shots. So shots where maybe there's like some close boxing, and the thing is they kept switching modes too. Like they wouldn't just stick to a wide shot and then go in tight for like an impact, which is usually what Jackie Chan's editing is like. He would show the fight, show the kicks and punches, and then whenever something would land, like when a fist would connect or a kick would land, you would feel it because he would cut to it and you would see, okay, the last frame, the last shot was the kick in mid motion, just about to hit. And then when you cut in at exactly the same moment. You redo the entire thing up to that moment. You do it again. So when you get in that close-up shot, you feel it connect. So your brain does the Kuleshov effect. If you don't know what the Kuleshov effect, I'll explain real quickly. The Kuleshov effect is when you have image number one and then image number two, and they come together to form a third imaginary meaning in your mind. So you have shot one, shot two, and then the third shot is an imaginary shot that your brain puts together. It combines the two shots for you in your brain and forms a miniature narrative in a split second, and it connects two things together. This had none of that, right? The Kuleshov effect was fucking disregarded entirely in this, except for one instance where they were having a fight in the village, and it was this kind of great oneer where the camera was flying around the scene following the different fighting motions of people, and as one person got hit, it would follow the line of where that hit was sending the energy. It would follow that energy, not literal energy, but just sort of the flow of the combat, and it would follow that to the next person being hit, or the next person fighting, and this guy and that guy. Sometimes it would still cut in that, so it wasn't a true oneer because it had a couple of cuts in it, but it was mostly a oneer, and that was pretty good too for camera work. But a lot of these shots that should have been tight were wide, and they kept switching fucking angles. They couldn't decide if they wanted to be right on the 180 degree line, which is where the actors stand, and you never want to jump the line. That's usually a bad idea unless you're reestablishing the line from a close up. But they never did jump the line, but it was like they would ride that line right next to the actors to get mediums and close-up shots, and then they would like cut back out to these wide shots of the fight, and it just did not gel. It didn't fucking work. And that kind of falls under editing more than cinematography, but it kind of counts as part of how the camera moves. There was this shot that was completely unnecessary in the fighting arena, right? When they go to see, when Shang-Chi and Katie are in Hong Kong and they go to the skyscraper to see his sister. They get out of the elevator and this guy's greeting them, whatever, and he does the classic like arm around both of them, like, yeah, I love you guys, I saw you on YouTube, whatever, like the bus fight. Somebody was recording it, which was kind of hilarious. There was a guy doing like a Facebook live stream of like Shang-Chi beating everybody's ass on the bus. Kind of funny, except the guy never shut the fuck up. So it was like mile minute jokes from this guy just talking shit and being like, haha, it's meta humor. Do you get it? Because everybody is vlogging nowadays. Haha. Like, no, I don't care, film. And then yeah, so that's, he was like, oh yeah, you're the guy from YouTube, whatever. So he puts his arm around Katie and his arm around Shang-Chi, and this is a frontal shot. Then there is a back shot, right? So this is like there's a shot of them starting to walk forward. Or no, sorry. There's a shot when he puts his arms around them, and you think it would start going as they walk along, but no. It then switches to a back shot for 2 seconds. He takes a step or two forward, and then it switches back to a frontal shot. So the back shot was entirely pointless because it showed no motion, no new information. It was entirely just wrong. It was a wrong shot. It was amateur hour on the editing for this film. I swear to God. Like, whoever edited this either didn't give a shit, was drunk, or has not edited many films. I don't know. So yeah, that's a bad shot. The cinematography is just nothing to write home about. There, aside from a couple of clever camera placements, and like I said, that oneer in the village fight that's not really a oneer, or certain stuff. I can't even, like, this is how bad it is. Not even bad, it's just how passe, how average it is, that I can't even recall a single moment that was interesting other than that oneer on the village. Like, I really can't. Like, I can't think in my head of like any sort of camera movements that were good. I can think of 10 right now from Drunken Master, right? Jackie Chan's Drunken Master back in the day. I can think of 10 right now off the top of my head. And I've seen that movie only twice in my life. I just saw Shang-Chi today, and I can't tell you exactly how the cinematography was because it was all over the place. It made no fucking sense. Speaking of Jackie Chan's films, certain scenes in this film seem to be like they wanted to emulate Jackie Chan. So there was like the bus scene, and he's hanging off the side of the bus, and it's kind of like I think the film is Detective Stories. I'm not sure because I never saw it, but there's a clip of Jackie where he's hanging off the side of this bus, and then there's like cars coming, so he's having to like pull himself up over the cars and not get hit. And they were kind of doing the same thing. And then there was the jacket scene, right? Jackie does the same thing with his jacket a lot. He'll do that in his films. And just in general, there were several points where they seemed to be mimicking Jackie Chan's fight style and his fight scenes in the worst ways possible, with no weight or anything. And mind you, that scene I'm talking about where like Shang-Chi is hanging off the side of the bus, the window has been broken out, so he's hanging there. I would love to know how he's hanging on the side of this bus. Like, he's got to have some serious glass shards in his fingers because he's grabbing the side of this thing. And he's fighting this guy who has a sword, right? And in a Jackie Chan film, a guy with a sword at that angle, right? If you're hanging out of a window, so you're holding on just by your little nubby, fingers, he would try. In a Jackie Chan film, this is how I could see it going down. The guy would swing at hand number 1. Jackie would move that and rely on hand number 2. And then when the guy tries to swing for 2, he would switch back to hand number 1 to hold, right? And then when he switches, and then the guy sees Shang-Chi's head and he tries to stab at him, he would go down. And then when the guy goes to just sweep across the board, Jackie would like throw himself up over the bus or something like that, right? There'd be a lot of comedy. And that's the problem, is that Jackie Chan, he claims that his biggest influence was Buster Keaton, right? That he loved Buster Keaton's films because it was a lot of physical comedy, a lot of timing, and a lot of back and forth with the environment. And that's where Jackie Chan got his style, is that he adapted it from the ideas that Buster Keaton laid down in the 1920s. So that's where Jackie Chan got it. But this is just somebody looking at Jackie Chan but not understanding why he's doing what he's doing but they're not even copying what Jackie Chan's doing. If they would have copied shot for shot some of the things Jackie Chan has done in his films, fuck it, rip it off, plagiarize it. I don't care. It would have made the choreography in this scene a lot more better, or a lot more, not a lot more better, but a lot more impressive. It would have looked better because it would have been done before. Yeah, my brain might have went, hey, they're ripping off Jackie Chan, but my brain also would have went, ooh, I like that when Jackie did it, and I like that when you do it because it looks cool. Just do it again. If you want to be like Jackie, be like Jackie. But that's the problem with this film is a lot of it established this like mystical arts, martial arts stuff that's just kind of like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, flying on wires, shit like that. But then it goes back to this kind of grounded Jackie Chan kind of like realist fighting of like bopping people and doing comedic stuff. But it doesn't really do that. I mean, the only really comedy bit that felt like a Jackie Chan bit was when they're on the scaffolding and Shang-Chi jumps down, but as he jumps down, he triggers this board which flies up towards the guy chasing him, and as the guy's about to jump down, he actually gets hit in the face and he falls backwards. It's hilarious to see, and it's great because it's in a nice wide shot and you can see everything. You can see the whole motion of everything. It's awesome. It was really funny. It got a genuine laugh out of me. And I wish I could have felt more joy like that watching this film, but I just couldn't because it just wasn't there. Let me get a drink real quick and then we'll get on to the actual fights. So, the actual fights, right? So the fights themselves, how are they worked? Not good. Not good a lot of the time. And again, this is nothing against the actors, right? They did their job. They learned choreography. They learned stunts. They were clearly putting in some work, right? I have nothing against that. That work ethic to do those kinds of stunts and do that kind of fighting, those motions, kudos to them because that's hard work. But if it was a lot of great work, I didn't fucking see it because the camera fucked it up. Okay, if you didn't, like, you can do the best thing in the world, but if your camera doesn't capture it correctly, it doesn't matter, right? So for the fights, I mean, again, a lot of this I kind of just went over, but the impacts felt weightless, right? There was no, like, you know how if you watch The Matrix, you can see when they're using wires to, like, they hit somebody, and to really sell the impact, they hit them, and they don't just fly back a couple of feet. They hit these guys, they're going 10 feet out of frame, right? They're gone, right? Or, you know, even Jackie Chan's films, when he hits somebody, there's a big reaction. Their head shakes, their whole body kind of tumbles over, and they move out of the way. They reel from the attack. These guys didn't really do that. Again, like I said, the guy on the bus where he hits his head off the bar, and then he falls into the seat, and then he, like, lands in the aisle, that's kind of good, right? And then the guy with the big beam, right? Like, that kind of stuff. Okay, sure, cool. That stuff worked. Nothing else did, right? So the bamboo board and that bus, the bus fall scene thing, right? Like, those are the only real, like, weighted impacts, right? That's it. Everything else, even when they're making contact later in the film, it doesn't feel good to watch. So they had, like, basically no traditional wire work from what I could see. There was a lot of CGI. There were tons of body doubles. I could see it all over the place. Even, like, there was a moment when Wu, after they killed his wife, Wu and Shang-Chi, little tiny Shang-Chi, he takes Shang-Chi and he puts the rings back on, and he takes Shang-Chi to go watch him, like, murder these mobster guys. And it's great because the fight starts out great. He smashes the table and he knocks one guy out of the way and he thrusts another guy out of the window, even though it was a complete CGI body double, and I could tell, and it was fucking stupid looking. And then another guy got hit with some, like, traditional wire work, right? So they kind of yoinked him out of frame, which is cool. But then they intentionally spun the camera around to catch Shang-Chi's reaction to this, which is kind of just a blank stare. Good job, kid. Great, cool, you're an actor. And again, not anything against the kid, but just, like, the emotion of the scene is just kind of blank, And when they turn around, they see this mirrored wall, which was cool because he, like, took a guy and threw it into it. But the problem is it was, like, a weird warbly mirrored wall, so you didn't get to really see anything in clear detail. And you could tell that they were doing CGI body doubles on that wall. So it's like, guys, if you're going to do body doubles, do body doubles. If you're going to do wires, do wires. You have to, like, which way, Western man, Like, pick a lane, dude. You can't do both, right? You look at The Matrix. The Matrix on wires looks great. the Matrix on body doubles did not look good in that Agent Smith. In the Matrix 2, when he fights Agent Smith and its body doubles, looked like shit. Because the tech wasn't there, because they could not possibly do it, you have to either use the practical stuff, which I would prefer, or if you're gonna do the CGI route, you got to go hard on the CGI and you really got to nail it. But other than that, yeah, that's that. I mean, the bamboo fight was barely lit, right? So the bamboo scaffolding on the side of the building, I don't, I'm not like, I'm pretty sure it wasn't my theater because the rest of the scenes were lit equally. So it's just this one scene that was like so dark it was hard to follow the action because all of his enemies were dressed in black and he was dressed in a dark blue desaturated hoodie. So I couldn't fucking see what was going on. And it did not help that, like I said in the cinematography, the camera was jumping between being on the 180 line and then being a wide shot and then being a tight shot, and it was just all over the place. There was no spatial like relations, you know, and that's my next point is that there were so many cuts in that you totally fucked up the spatial relations. I had no idea at any given time where Shang-Chi was, where the next attack was coming from, or what he was planning to get out of the situation. I couldn't see any of that. And that's from the lighting side, and that's from the camera cutting side. It just made no fucking sense either way. Let's see. The only time we actually got to see Shang-Chi's father, like Wu, the only time Wu got to do anything that was fucking badass was in the opening fight scene with the temple for like 2 seconds. That was it. When he does the opening fight, because they do this awesome thing where his men are all standing behind him and they're gonna assault this temple, and then he just like walks up to the front and he's wearing this badass like ancient Chinese armor. You know the kind with like the studs and the lines in it. You know, it looks badass, right? And he's got the 10 rings just on his arms. These guys, like, he starts walking towards the enemy, like, very calmly, and then these fucking guys just start volleying arrows at him. And so he whips off the 10 rings, and he makes this cool shield around him by whipping the rings around constantly, so it makes this big sphere that protects him. And then he gets in the middle of it, and they done fucked up because they let him get too close. So now he's just whipping around and like punching multiple guys, and they're all waiting their turn, obviously, because that's how martial arts works. But even if they all attacked in a group, he then like when it started to get stale, it was like, oh shit, like when are all of them just gonna try and jump on him? And then by the point where it's like, okay, they look like they were about ready to jump on him all at once, he just whips the rings around and knocks the fuck out of all of them, and then busts open the stone door. And then you cut to a scene afterwards where he's just sitting there on his new throne watching his guys train, right? And it's assumed that like the guys he just defeated joined his army, right? And that's kind of cool. And I like that. But that was it. That was the only time Wu got to be at full strength. We saw none of that the rest of the film. Nothing even close to that power level. Which is bullshit. You don't start the film with the highest power level. You build up to the power level, right? So then there's the final fight between Shang-Chi and Wu, right? Shang-Chi and his father and son battle, you know how it goes. And there was no weight to it. It was a bunch of CGI. Even when they made like full contact with each other, even when the actors were physically hitting each other, they didn't sell any of their blows. They were just kind of bop, bop, bop. It was like watching a rabbit hit an elephant's leg. Essentially, that's the best way I can describe it. Is that it's like a toddler attempting to harm Mike Tyson, right? It's like Mike Tyson watching a toddler try to beat him up, just kind of mashing at his leg with its little baby fists. It is making contact, but there's no actual weight or conflict when the two forces meet. There's just nothing that comes from it. It felt weak, it felt stupid, and it felt slow. It just did not feel good at all. I mean, and that kind of describes the whole film, really, is that it just didn't feel good. So, with the fighting out of the way, like I said, there were some parts, like, if the whole movie either would have gone to Jackie Chan, crazy flips and shit, and using the environment, that would have been great. Or if it would have gone to, I mean, just if you're doing mystical stuff, just go for it, man. Just say, like, yeah, these guys are like flying around and flopping around and doing this shit. And it's like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, bunch of wire pulls and shit. You want to be crazy with it, be crazy with it. I don't give a fuck. Just go, but pick a direction. They didn't. They ended up in the middle of the road, and it was not satisfying. So on to the characters, right? Off the fighting, onto the characters. These are some of the worst characters I've ever seen in a film, period. Not even just for Marvel films, but overall. Like, it's like someone made an entire film of Black Widows. Because Black Widow, the character Natasha Romanoff, she's bland as hell in every movie she's been in. She doesn't do much. But even then, like, that's a little bit better than some of these characters. These characters are, they're either completely one dimensional and boring, or just like awful characters, and you're supposed to root for them because they're the good guys. I don't get it. So to start off, Shang-Chi, right, the main character, Shang-Chi himself, is a fucking crybaby. He is like, and understandably so, because when he was like 7, he watched his mother get beat down by like 30 dudes. That would be a little traumatizing. And then his father conscripts him into being trained as a warrior, right? And that's the thing, is it's like, okay, your father taught you how to be a badass so that you could protect yourself, and look at you now. You're so badass that when your father, mind you, this is a really stupid thing, made no sense. His own father sent assassins after him to try and, I guess, test him or something. I don't know. And even his like top trained assassins couldn't defeat you. That's how badass you are, Shang-Chi. This is Shang-Chi without the rings, by the way. This is just normal Shang-Chi fighting. He was still whooping ass and winning fights constantly. Like, all right, cool. You're mad that your dad turned you into that, turned you into a great guy. But you know what? Okay, maybe he doesn't want to be a fighter. Maybe he doesn't want to be a killer. That's, the narrative. Okay, except he actually avenges his mother's death. So remember when I said Wu takes little baby Shang-Chi and they go beat up some mobsters? They, in that scene, he like asks the guy before he kills him. He's like, "Where's your boss?" He's like, "I don't know." He's like, "Okay," and then just blasts his face off, which is great. I love that side of Wu. I want to see. You give me an entire mini series of Wu just being a warlord and beating the shit out of people all over the world. I would watch that 100%. Great guy. Not a great guy, but like a great character to watch. Just he's so calculating and cold and just intense. And then so they didn't find the head boss guy they really wanted revenge on, the leader of the Iron Gang. So then apparently he finds him years later, and by this time, of course, Shang-Chi is no longer a child. He's now about 14. He's been trained for years to be an assassin. He's like top tier now, and that's his assignment, is he's sent off to go kill this guy. And he lies to Katie when he tells her his backstory. He's like, "Oh, I left to go do the assignment, but then I decided I couldn't go through with it, so I ran away to San Francisco." That was basically his shtick. But then later he admits, no, he lied about that. I actually did go through the assignment, and then I ran away to San Francisco. Completely inconsequential to the narrative, by the way. Makes no difference, because you just ended up in San Francisco either way. It doesn't matter if you killed the guy or didn't kill the guy. You're still there. You're still running away from your father. You're still running away from your problems, and you're crying about it and whining about it and acting like it's the worst thing in the world that you were able to avenge your mother's murder. I don't know about you guys, but I love my mother. And if somebody murdered her in cold blood, I would probably be a little upsetty spaghetti at that. I don't know. And I probably wouldn't feel that bad about taking out the dude who did it, especially if I had been basically brainwashed by my father for several years into being a top tier assassin and craving vengeance and murder. Because you know damn well he trained him like that. So I don't understand why Shang-Chi is such a little baby about all this. And then he finally stands up to his father in the end. Obviously, he has to, the son overcomes the father, and then he gets the 10 rings or that shit. But it's this thing of like, yikes, Captain. I mean, could you be any more of a fucking pussy? Like, any other film, like, you look at Man of Steel, right? In Man of Steel, Superman actively wanted to rip Zod's head off, right? He wanted to kill Zod because he threatened his mother. Didn't even lay a finger on her, right? Shang-Chi's mom got murdered, and he feels bad about going and taking out the guy that did it and avenging her. Martha Kent wasn't even touched yet. Nothing even happened to her yet in Man of Steel. And Clark was already ready to absolutely rip Zod into pieces. He tears ass with him across this cornfield, punching him repeatedly as they skid across this cornfield, saying, "You don't threaten my mother." He's just beating the shit out of him. That's what a son does for a mother when they love them. That is the relationship. Okay? take notes. Destin, what's his name? What? It's a weird name. Destin Daniel Cretton is the guy. If you want to look him up, that's the guy that directed it. Not only directed, but he also wrote the screenplay and the script. He is fully responsible for this. What the fuck, dude? That's a moment I'll actually call someone out. You're captain of the ship. You're not only the director but also the writer. That's your fault. Okay. So let's see. Next, Shang-Chi's sister is a Mary Sue, right? She's absolutely Mary Sue. I don't care if she supposedly quote unquote trained, right? In the film to get as good at fighting as she did. She didn't really train. What she did, and this is actually shown in Shang-Chi's flashback. So Shang-Chi is having a flashback about his own childhood, and we're seeing the sister in the background, like training like him, like mimicking his moves, which is kind of cool in the face of it. If they would have taken the direction of, well, the daughter is trying, and she's showing that she's trying. So then after Shang-Chi leaves, the dad stops ignoring the daughter and realizes her potential and is like, you know what? Since he's gone, I'll take the runner-up, and I'm going to make you fucking cool. That would have been a great narrative to go with, but no. She supposedly trains herself, which I would love to see how no one in that compound noticed that she was walking around in the middle of the night, didn't notice the various bumps, cuts, or bruises that she would have gotten from accidentally hitting herself with any of these deadly weapons that she was practicing with. And apparently, by her own admission, she is superior to other people. The people who actually got trained with mentors and like got proper feedback and critique and were told how to do it correctly. Apparently, they are actually worse than her. This girl that had literally no guidance and had to figure it all out by herself. Now, I'm not saying that's impossible. I'm just saying that's pretty much impossible. That like, I mean, she's a petty bitch. She thinks only about herself, right? She claims that Shang-Chi abandoned her, but then she's like living in Hong Kong, never thinks to try and find him ever, right? Doesn't even attempt to locate him. When she eventually escapes, because of course she escapes this compound too. It's not like her dad had the whole thing on lockdown with a bunch of bodyguards or anything. No, of course she just fucking leaves willy-nilly. It's fine. Which actually gets brought up later in the messaging. I'll talk about that. But yeah, that's his sister. His sister is self-absorbed. She's petty as fuck. I just don't like her. I'm supposed to somehow root for this woman or want to believe in her? No, I refuse to. She is a fucking like terrible, terrible person. I was about to say another word, but that would have been rude. But she's just a bad person. Okay, Shang-Chi at least tried to get out of the life. She actively inserted herself into the life. I'll get into that with the messaging, but we'll continue. So Shang-Chi's friend, right, Katie, played by Awkwafina, I believe is the woman's name. She is obnoxious. She does not shut up. She is a Mary Sue, and like she doesn't even have any training or anything. She's literally a Mary Sue. She tags along this whole adventure just to get to do things because the writing, right? And I'll get to that later. So yeah, she has a point where she picks up this bow and arrow and is really good at it for some reason. After 5 minutes of using it, I don't get it, but yeah, we'll get on to that later. Shang-Chi's father, right, Wu, he is the most sympathetic character, I shit you not. He is supposed to be the villain. I'm not supposed to like this guy. This guy actively tortured his own son to make him into an assassin, into a warrior, to make him strong, right? He bred out, he literally like beat the weakness out of this kid, right? And he literally physically abused this child to turn him into a warrior. And what does this movie do? It shows him as a man who found love, lost it, and went back to his old ways. All sympathetic actions. It makes total sense. If I am a lonely warlord who has no equal, I run to a woman. By the way, the woman like is, you know, it's his wife like beats his ass basically, or like she defeats him when he tries to come and fight her in the first place. So that's why they fall in love. And if I find someone who is my equal or who I would consider attractive, and then I am with them and I want to be with them and only them and with my children, my family, and then somebody takes that away from me, of course I'm going to go back to my old ways and I'm going to teach them a lesson. Why would I not? I was a warlord for thousands and thousands of years. Of course I'm going to do that. That's a completely reasonable and logical response to someone murdering your wife. Like, bruh. Anyway, Morris is this little creature dog thing. I don't know. He is this fluffy, four-legged creature, has four wings as well. I'm not sure what the hell he is. He doesn't have a face, doesn't have a head or anything. It's just kind of a body that's fuzzy, and he has four legs, and he has four wings, and the wings are sparkly, by the way. They're kind of like sequins. They're kind of like that tint of emerald or something, kind of like shiny, like fish scales, you know. And yeah, this character exists solely to sell toys, right? It is this character squeaks and is fluffy. That's it. It's just the Chewbacca of Shang-Chi. I shit you not, that's what this character is. And that was into the next character, Travis. Do you guys remember Travis? Remember watching Iron Man 3 and how the Mandarin didn't turn out to not actually be the Mandarin in the Ten Rings, not the real one. It was an actor named Travis, right? Yeah, Travis is back. He's just here with Wu, with the actual Mandarin. So Wu was gonna kill him, I guess. Like he busted him out of federal prison to kill him for impersonating him, I guess. I don't know. And then before he did, like he was about to, and then Travis started like doing Macbeth, I think. He said he was like reciting Macbeth, and like it was so funny that Wu decided, fuck it, this guy's funny, so he kind of keeps him under lock and key in his mountain complex as a court jester. I don't know. I mean, I guess, sure, that makes sense. I guess. But he's completely unnecessary. Nothing but a comic relief. Just there to be fun. And you know what? He was fun. Okay, I have to say. There was one of the parts in the movie that genuinely made me laugh was when Morris, the little dog thing, and Morris and Travis have been hanging out this whole time, by the way, while he's been in prison. And so in the battle, after the battle, Morris is looking around and he finds Travis and he thinks Travis is dead. And so he's like crying and pushing on him, like the typical pet thing. And then Travis like sits up real quick and is like, I'm not dead. It's just a performance. Now lie down, and basically play dead with me, right? And it's cute because he lies down. It's funny because then Travis lies down and then Morris does the like roll over play dead gesture. Like, okay, that's kind of cute and funny, right? That was the only. And again, it's because he's the comic relief. He's there just for that. And he delivered one of the stupidest backstory things ever. Like, the reason he got into acting was because he went and saw Planet of the Apes. And he was like, he asked his mom why the apes, like how did they get the apes to be in the movies? Because he thought the apes were real apes. And then the mom said, no, they're not doing that. They're acting, right? And then he still, I guess, misinterpreted that as apes, like literal monkeys, acting as if they're doing things. He didn't understand. Like apparently he didn't understand, and when he grew up, he didn't understand either that they were people in monkey costumes. Like I don't get this character. I love Travis, I really do. He's a fun comic relief guy, and that's all he's supposed to be. But my God, I do not understand this man's mentality as a human being. He is out there, man. He's off the wall. He's fucking weird. Ah. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Had to have something in my throat. Give me a moment. My apologies about that. I think I got a piece of lint or something in my mouth. I'm not sure how that happened. Um, but yeah, no, Travis. That's just Travis. That's Travis. He's back for some reason. The weirdest part, I think I have that written down. The shit that made no sense. If I don't, I'll go over it anyway. Yeah, I do have it in the shit that made no sense section. So we'll get to that later. Wong, right? So remember Wong from Doctor Strange, right? Wong, the library keeper guy. He does nothing the entire film, right? You think he would know about like Tallow and the village, right? In the other dimension, and he would like come to help them with like the demon soul sucking thing. Nope, just doesn't. He doesn't show up until the end for an after credit scene, right? And then in the after credit scene, he basically does nothing. They just tell them, look, we don't know. Like he basically is like, hey, you got the like. He shows up right during the bar scene where they're where Shang-Chi and Katie are telling their friends about this awesome quest they went on. And their friends, of course, don't believe them. And of course, haha, the comedic timing is that Wong opens a portal to come get them. And oh my god, it's real. Okay, really? Yeah, of course. And then, like, you're living in a world with, like, Tony Stark and shit. Like, you think that them fighting mystical dragon shit is not real? Like, what the fuck? Are you not paying attention? And so they do that. And then Wong is like, hey, you got the rings, come with me. They go and they analyze the rings in this after credit sequence, and what happens is Wong says there's nothing like this in the archives, right? So nothing in this endless library of mystical arts is like they have no information on Shang-Chi's 10 rings. Like they have no idea what they are. Then for some reason Bruce Banner is there, not the Hulk, not Banner Hulk, just Bruce Banner in human form with long hair now. I guess he grew his hair out. And he, I guess, turned himself back into Banner, which is fine because I never liked Banner Hulk anyway. If they want to retcon that and just like go back to having Bruce Banner and the Hulk be separate personalities, I really like that. That's very good. But yeah, Bruce Banner's there. I don't know why he was called in because these are mystical space like rings that came from obviously not Earth. So okay, I don't know. So Bruce Banner's there, and he's like, I thought they might be vibranium, but I tested them. I don't know what they are. There's something I don't know. And then Captain Marvel's there, right? Brie Larson's character, Captain Marvel. She's there, which kind of made a little bit of sense because she's been in outer space and stuff, so she might have seen some weird stuff, or maybe some other planet knew about these rings. She might know something. She doesn't. Spoiler alert, she doesn't. So they have an entire scene where they say, okay, we don't know what these rings are. We don't know where they came from. Basically, we're wasting everybody's time by having you watch this scene. And then they're just imply like, okay, the ring is giving off this signal, right? When you use the ring, it started giving off this signal on a subatomic level, right? Something activated, right? And it's like, well, where's it sending it? Don't know, just out in space somewhere. Okay. But who's getting this signal, right? Who's on the other end? Don't fucking know. Most useless fucking scene. Pointless in all ways. Did nothing. And I guess that's why there's two after credits. They're trying to I guess bait into like the Eternals or like there being another big bad in the universe and the rings are like sending a signal out. I don't know. Or there's the and then there's the second scene which actually sets up the sequel to Shang-Chi, right? And it says the 10 rings will return, you know. So okay. But yeah, I'll get to that in a minute. So then there's the last thing in this character setup is that there's this masked character. I'm not even gonna dignify talking about the one white guy. For some reason, like out of this entire complex of random fucking Asian soldier people that are working for Wu, that are working for Shang-Chi's father and are members of the Ten Ring. There's just this random big white guy. Like when I say big, I mean muscly big. Big muscly white guy, and he's missing an arm, so instead of like a forearm he just has a sword that comes out, which is kind of cool, but I don't care about his character. He does not much the entire film, so whatever. But yeah, there's this masked character, right? And he has a relationship with Shang-Chi in a way. He's mute, right? So he makes no sound, right? He doesn't speak at all during this thing. He's kind of like Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe. He doesn't make any noise, just kind of a badass ninja guy. So he's wearing this like red and white kind of like not really like kabuki theater, but like it's some kind of performative mask, you can tell, or he's painted his face, something like that, right? And then he's wearing this like covering that covers everything but his eyes and his like part of his forehead, and then the rest of it is all covered with this blue ninja suit. And he looks fucking cool. He looks interesting, right? And this guy is kind of set up in the flashbacks as the henchman that was directed to mentor Shang-Chi, and like every time he wouldn't do what his father wanted or was being weak, he would cane him or spar with him and break his bones and shit like that. He would like lay down the law on this kid. And so he kind of became this like painful symbol for Shang-Chi as like a physical presence that acted as his PTSD towards his father and towards his past. That was the trauma. That was a living embodiment of his trauma. Except they just do nothing with it. He does nothing significant in the entire film other than steal a pendant from Shang-Chi's sister and is about to leave, and then they have this fight, which, let me tell you about this fucking fight. It's cool because Shang-Chi actually beats him, because in the flashback, Shang-Chi got his ass beat when he was a kid by this guy, and then in the future, Shang-Chi is now so powerful, he overpowers him. That's a great visual. That's a great way to show that Shang-Chi is no longer this little kid and he can win. He's about to kill him, and then, of course, the perfect timing, right? Perfect timing of these movies. There's always perfect timing that either Wu, right, Shang-Chi's father, either Wu showed up just in time to stop him from killing his henchman, or he was standing there the whole time waiting for the fight to be over and then stops him from killing the henchman. Either way, it makes no fucking sense to anything. It's just like, okay, cool. Either it's a random coincidence, which is stupid, or he's just standing around, which is not his character at all. That's not how he works. But okay, sure. But yeah, then this mask guy just gets yanked up at the ending of the movie when they're all fighting in the village, and then the soul-sucking demons start getting out of the wall, right? That I was talking about before. They just start coming out of the wall. The first fucking person they kill is the masked guy. They don't kill the guy with the sword hand. They don't kill a random village guy. They don't kill a random henchman. They kill, like, his enforcer guy. They kill, like, the guy with the cool costume. That would seem to be an interesting character in some way. This thing flies over, snatches this guy up, and sucks his soul out. And everyone just watches in horror. I'm like, all right, cool, sure. Fine. Great. That was completely fucking stupid, but sure. So yeah, that's the mask guy. I mean, that's the character rundown, really. That's all the characters that are in this. His aunt shows up at some point, like he has an aunt in Talo, like the mystical other dimensional village. He has, like, apparently his mom had a sister, and she's played by, I cannot remember the woman's name, but she's a very famous Chinese stunt woman. She was basically the Chinese stunt woman. If you ever seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or what was the other one? I think it was Double Fist. In the 90s, or not the 90s, the 80s. She was doing a lot of stunt work when she was younger, and it was primo stuff. Like, she's basically female Jackie Chan, like, in popularity and in doing her own stunts. But she doesn't do much in this film. She doesn't really fucking do anything. So there's nothing really to talk about, other than until I get to the message section, which is coming up. So, okay, so that's all the characters. Yeah, that's the characters of Shang-Chi. None of them I will write home about. None of them were of intrigue. None of them were interesting except the mask guy. He was kind of interesting. Wu was sympathetic. I liked Wu. I actually genuinely wanted him to succeed, and then they just killed him off later in the film. The film ends with him literally getting his soul sucked out, but instead of it being a quick, easy thing like the last guy, it's this long, drawn-out thing where Shang-Chi is staring up at his father having his soul sucked out, and then, like, the dad, like, throws his hands forward and lets go of the rings, and so the rings fly out and fly onto Shang-Chi, and then they change color for some reason. Not quite sure why, but okay. So now that's how they become yellow. They're blue when they're on his dad's arms, but when he has them, they're yellow. So, okay, sure. But yeah, that's it. That's all I can say about the characters. There's nothing really positive to say. Not even for Wu. He's just a sympathetic character, which is not good because he's supposed to be the villain. I'm not supposed to like this guy. He's supposed to be a bastard and then be redeemed near the end of the film as the I will sacrifice myself son, like Luke Vader or Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. That kind of shit. But no, they didn't do that. Let's see. The messaging. So this is where shit's going to get probably a little offensive to some people. This movie was feminist girl power central. And if you think I'm kidding, if you think I'm pulling, like, this shit out of thin air, I'm not. I have specific examples. Hear me out. So, in this film, women save the day constantly. Like, fucking all over the place. His sister, right? So at one point, Katie, who is tagged along and is fucking useless, obviously, instead of Shang-Chi being alone and being able to escape down the scaffolding quickly, he has to try and get Katie out. And she is like scared, right? Because it's heights. And so she takes so long that the henchmen have time to get over to the window and start fighting with Shang-Chi and do the fight on the scaffolding, right? Okay, cool, fine. Katie, of course, gets in trouble at some point, and she's hanging off the side. Again, another thing where they half-assed plagiarizing Jackie Chan and were like trying to emulate it, where kind of like in Rush Hour where Carter is like hanging off the bamboo, right? And the bamboo scaffolding is like coming off the building. So she drops, right? So this bamboo thing snaps under her weight, and she drops. He grabs her. He can't hold on to Katie, right? And I think it's that he gets like stunned in the back or something. I'm pretty sure that's what happens. Is he's holding on to Katie with one arm, and they're holding him back with another arm, and like the bad guys are holding him back, and then they like hit him with a shock stick. It's not really a shock stick. It's actually like a sword, like one of those like hook swords, which is really cool. And it's like a taser version of that, which is pretty fucking badass. But then they tase him with the end of that, and so that makes his muscle. Which, I mean, if you've ever been hit with a taser, you would know that your muscles do not actually let go. They just kind of they either freeze or they start to contract in certain areas. So if anything, he should have tightened his grip. But fuck realism, right? So fuck the realism. He like, that's a quick shock to him, so he kind of lets her go in surprise. She falls, right? This woman falls. God knows how far. She's going down several stories, right? And then of course, again with the perfect timing, the coincidental timing, his sister, Shang-Chi's sister, I don't remember her name because I just don't fucking care to remember it. It's not worth remembering. She comes back just in time and is in just the right spot underneath them to reach out and catch Katie. I would love to know how neither of their arms were dislocated from the immense speed that this woman picked up. She dropped like 7 stories straight down. Minimum 7 stories going straight down. And this one, like, his sister just reaches out, snatches Katie's arm, and then pulls her back in. And it's fine. I would love to know how her arms didn't dislocate, but fuck realism. We just said fuck realism with the taser stick thing. Fuck realism. No realism. And that's a problem for this film. Is it says fuck realism, but at the same time doesn't go heavy enough into the crazy kung fu hustle kind of physics and wire pulls and shit. Doesn't do that. So okay. But this is about this section is me outlining women saving the day. So in that instance, that is, okay, you can brush that off as like they were trying to set up something dramatic. But really what it was is that was the start of them showing that, hey, women are better than men. Women can do things men can't do. He tries to save Katie, fails, and who succeeds? The woman, right? The woman succeeds. Now, again, hold your comments. I can probably hear you typing right now. That's not sexist to say or anything. That's what I gathered from the scene. Okay. One example is on the left. Let's keep going. So later on, they are locked up in the mountain complex by Wu, Shang-Chi's father, right? So he locks them up because they're not going to help him try to resurrect their mom, because that's a batshit crazy idea, and they tell him so, which just gets them locked up. I don't know why you would actively go against the guy that could hold you hostage at any moment, but okay, go off, son. So they do that, and they're locked up. And then while they're talking to Travis, this is where they meet Travis and Morris in the jail cell. And while they're talking to him, and Travis is giving this whole exposition of how he got caught in Iron Man 3, and then he got put in federal prison, and then he got busted out, and he gives this whole story of how he got there and what the fuck is up with Morris, right? A whole thing just explaining these two characters existing, right? That's all it was. During that section, fucking what's her face? I don't remember her name. Kelly. I don't know. Kelly sounds like the right word. Fuck it. We'll just call her Kelly. Kelly and Katie, right? So Katie is his friend. Kelly is his sister. So we'll just call her Kelly. I don't care. I just don't give a shit. So we'll just call her Katie. Katie is off, and in the middle of this scene, just busts through this brick wall, like kicking it out, pushing the bricks out, to open up to this secret tunnel. Which, obviously, I'm like, what the fuck is with this hole in the wall, right? Like, did you always have that? And then she says, she just absolutely just this is where the over-explaining thing from earlier comes back, where she's just like, oh yeah, by the way, these are like secret tunnels that Dad has built in the compound. As if Shang-Chi didn't already know that. Why the fuck would he not know that? He was trained under his father. His father probably would have insisted that he know all the ways in and out of the compound so that he could guard against danger. That would probably be part of his training. So again, it's assuming that the men in the room are stupid and can't understand hole, tunnel, leave, right? That's a basic thing. Or it's for the audience's sake, I don't know which. But even then, you're just assuming the audience is too stupid to understand that this is a tunnel. No one even asked the question. That was the thing, is I don't remember anyone actively asking the question of like, where did you come from, or what is this tunnel? No, I don't remember if anyone actually said that. She just kind of blurted it out, like, oh yeah, this is a secret tunnel, let's go. Like, okay. By the way, this is in the future when Wu has a bunch of guards at his compound now. Not sure why he didn't have them before, but okay. So he's got guards at the compound, and he's got TV cameras and shit, right? So he's set, right? He's got security cameras, he's got fingerprint locks, all kinds of shit. But for some reason, these secret tunnels have no cameras in them, or motion sensors, or anything like that. Okay, sure. So that's that. Then after they escape through the tunnel, they're in the garage. They're trying to take a car. The one tunnel gets blocked, which I guess, okay, even though they're in a big car, they could probably push past the people trying to block them, but all right. They back up. They try to go through the other gate. And of course, the other gate is a fingerprint scan to open it. So of course, they have to have this cool thing. It could have been cool, but again, it's a dark car with a dark interior. Everyone's wearing black, and it's just kind of whatever. A lot of close, tight bullshit happening. And Shang-Chi has like a guy halfway in the window or whatever, and like has pulled him into the car off of like a dirt bike. And then for some reason, I guess they decide not to cut the power to the garage, so they just kind of leave it on. Not sure why. Really not sure. So they just let them escape by like taking this guy and knocking him out, and then putting his fingerprint on this like remote access panel that's in the car, which is kind of cool, I guess. But the way they do it is that Shang-Chi is struggling with this guy for a minute, and she's like, come on, what's up, you know, and like Katie's in the front, and she's like, hurry up back there, and he's like, I'm trying, and Shang-Chi is failing. Again, the man in the situation is failing. He's a failure, right? So are we sensing a pattern here? Again, the man is failing, or the man is wasting time, right? So the woman has to step up, his sister, you know. So Kelly takes the helmet off of this henchman guy and whaps him in the head with it. That's another stupid fucking trope that they're using in this, is that damn near everybody in this movie has like a glass forehead. Like everyone takes one bump on the noggin. The guy in the bus, where Katie ended up having to drive the bus in the bus scene because the driver got knocked out because he whapped his head off the steering wheel for a second. Like, okay, sure. This guy gets hit in the head with a helmet, other shit. Like multiple people get hit one time and get knocked the fuck out. Oh, again, that's another point. I think, do I have that in here? No, I didn't actually include it in this like Women Save the Day thing, but it kind of counts because they have this fight in the arena. If you've seen the trailer, you've probably seen Shang-Chi fighting with some woman in the arena. That's his sister. That's Kelly. So they're fighting, and then at one point the fight's kind of over, and she looks like she's about to leave, and then she just turns around and just knocks him the fuck out. I don't remember if it's an elbow or a kick, but literally just hits him in the head, and he falls flat on the floor, and he's like bleeding from his mouth, and he's completely incapacitated. From a single blow to the head, this highly trained assassin goes down like a sack of rocks. Okay, sure. So yeah, same thing here, where she just takes the helmet off, bops the what I assume is a highly trained henchman, a highly trained assassin, bopped on the head, and he just gets knocked out. Okay, fine. But again, this is still kind of stretching, right? Is like, okay, maybe there's a pattern here. Let's keep going. The way that Shang-Chi wins is not through his own merit or his own superiority to his father, or that he is smarter than his father. None of that. The way he wins is that his mother, right, who, you know, is dead at this point, was the only person that could tame, that could combat Wu when he was using the 10 rings. And the way she did it was literally Tai Chi. I am not joking. She's doing some Tai Chi fucking wishy-washy energy shit. I'm not kidding. This is an actual plot point, that his mother is learning this. right? His mother does this in the beginning of the film when they fall in love. They kind of had this like playful fight where she defeats him and he can't hurt her. She's not really going to hurt him. So they kind of fall in love. Okay, cool. Later on, he has a flashback to her teaching them Tai Chi or some shit, right? Like they're doing like family exercise time and she's teaching him the moves. And he remembers that while he's training with his aunt. Now, again, this goes back to the same thing, right? So in the village, they're all getting ready for war, so they're all training up and doing whatever. This happens over like an hour or two, I guess. I don't know, a couple hours maybe. So Katie goes off to the archery range where she instantly drops. I shit you not. She's never picked up a bow in her life. It would seem. From what I know, she has no skill in dexterity or archery. Picks up this bow and arrow for the first time, aims it at a target that's maybe 20 feet away, has a perfect draw, fires, and almost hits it in the bullseye. Literally right on the. If you've ever seen a bullseye, you'll know there's like that big red outer ring, and then there's like closer to the center of the target, but around it's like the big white space. She hit it right between the white space and the red space on the left side of that circle. Like it was 3 inches off the center. I'm not kidding. She literally has not done this before. She then proceeds to do that 3 more times in a row in damn near the same spot every time. Like, and we know because we watch her land like 2 or 3 more shots around that first shot. Her fucking, like, it leans to the left, but her aim is like almost perfect. And she's never done this before. Mary Sue, anyone. It's like, and then, of course, then we go to the sister, right? We go to Kelly. And Kelly, she likes I don't know what it's called, but it's like this knife that's on a rope. And then on the other end of the rope is a weight. So you like, it's that cool thing you see. I'm sure you guys have seen it before. It's where it's a rope. And then on one end it's a knife. And on the other end it's like a weight. And they kind of flip it around. And like, it's kind of like a big rope. And they just kind of swing it and flip it and like throw it out towards something and spike it and then pull it back in. It's the thing that Sub-Zero, or not Sub-Zero, in Mortal Kombat, it's the thing that Scorpion uses, right? Like before he had the thing in his hand, his weapon was actually a chain with a knife on the end. That's how he would use it. Something like that. So of course she's badass. We saw this in her flashback, which was supposed to be Shang-Chi's childhood flashback, but she kind of invaded it a little bit, so kind of stole his thunder, which is fine, I guess, girl power. So we had that pre-established. So then, of course, she gets this magical one that's like, here, this is made out of like dragon scale, so it's a really good weapon. All right, cool, fine, cool, great. So she's in this like training area with some bamboo sticks, and she's swinging it around, and she's nailing these bamboo sticks and busting them up and doing awesome stuff, right? And then we get to Shang-Chi, who goes to train with his aunt to learn how to defeat his father. He fails. He literally tries to attack his aunt, falls flat on his face, or she shoves him into the dirt about 3 times in a row. Like, she just redirects his energy and fucking chumps him every time, dude. I'm not kidding. So, Katie, who has never touched a bow and arrow in her life, is amazing at archery already. Then there's Kelly, right? His sister. I'm just calling her Kelly. Shang-Chi's sister, who apparently taught herself martial arts, which is not really that possible, but okay. And then she's doing perfectly with this thing. So the women in this scene, let me break this down for you. Women doing good. And then he goes to train with his aunt, who is, say it with me, a woman. And the woman is putting the man down. And the woman is teaching the man a thing or two, right? It's a power shift dynamic, which could have been cool if Shang-Chi was in any way an asshole. We saw this in Avatar: The Last Airbender, when Sokka meets the Kyoshi warriors, and he degrades them for being women and mocks them and thinks they're not real warriors. And they then whoop his ass, and then he has to apologize for being a dick, and then they teach him their ways. And he becomes a better person and a better warrior for it. Okay, like that's how you earn that. No, they don't earn that. Literally, just Shang-Chi just is trying to train. And then he starts doing Tai Chi moves. Shit you not, that is how the final fight goes. When he defeats his father, he's like redirecting his body and like doing these fucking Tai Chi moves. Like literally, he like draws his foot backwards into a semicircle and shit. He's like so fucking doing Tai Chi. He's doing such just normal exercises of shit. And I am so annoyed by that thought because it wasn't really like it wasn't a quick thing. It was just him redirecting his father, and it's like, and the fact that his mother and his aunt were responsible for teaching him that, like, oh, the way your father taught you is inferior. Here is the superior method of fighting, which is not really fighting. It's just kind of dancing with your opponent. So nothing impactful and nothing cool. Okay. Moving on from that, we have the right. We have the arrow thing. Bringing that back, right? So after Katie does this thing on the shooting range, it's like she wants to help in the initial fight, but the guy who's, I guess, in charge of their training is like, no, you can't. You're not ready. Which is, I hesitate to call it a misogynistic dig, to be like, no, the only reason he's saying she's not ready is because she's a woman, even though in their culture, in the Talo village, they apparently train their women and their men together, so they're all warriors. But okay, so yeah, that I hesitate to call that one a moment of painting the man badly. But he does that, and then later when the demons come and everybody has to team up, he's like, okay, just don't die. Like, okay, all hands on deck, right? Cool. Katie is shooting these things just fine. Then comes the moment when the dragon and the soul sucking demon, like the big one, they're fucking fighting, right? And they need to aim for its throat, right? And of course, the man who knows this and could actually make the shot gets snatched up at the last second by this soul-sucking demon. And of course, Katie just stares. She's been in the heat of combat, folks, for the last, like, 20 minutes, right? She's been doing this shit. She's been seeing people die around her constantly and still remain focused on shooting the enemies and doing what she needs to do. Sees this fucking guy 2 feet from her, watches him slowly get the soul sucked out of him, and doesn't shoot the demon that's actively sucking his soul out. Just lets it happen. Okay, cool. Why? Plot. That's why. Because she has to be the one to take a shot. This is where the hardcore feminist shit really starts to shine. The Mary Sue, women are great shit comes in. And trust me when I say, I am not making this up. When I get to talking about the after credits sequence, you are going to flip your fucking lid. Okay? Because it is blatant feminist propaganda. I'm not kidding. And not feminist as in equality stuff. Feminist as in the woman is superior and she deserves to do this. I'm not kidding. I will talk about that. But so basically the dragon and the demon soul sucker are like neck and neck right now, and it's trying to eat the dragon's soul, I guess. And so its neck is kind of exposed and whatever. It's like a big target. She is, I'm not kidding, I would guess 300 to 500 feet away, somewhere in that range. This is a woman who has never fired a bow and arrow in her life until a couple hours ago. She has one arrow. She pulls a perfect Hail Mary shot. It flies in an exactly straight line directly into this thing's throat. Now, granted, it is a large target, but shit, she was still several hundred feet away from this thing. It was over the lake away from her, like past the edge of the water. She was fucking far from this thing. And not only did she get the trajectory correct, it went straight to the target, and there was like wind and shit. Like there is like wind and stuff happening around this dragon and this demon that are fighting. And the arrow never falters. It just went fucking straight magically. Like no imbued magical power or anything. It's just a damn arrow made out of a dragon scale. She fired it perfectly. That is what I'm talking about when I say Mary Sue feminist nonsense. The woman gets to do things perfectly. The men have to do things hard and wrong and fail, right? And they have to fail at things. And they need the women to come help them and save them. Shit you not, that is the film, and if you watch it, you will see I am correct. Don't watch it because it's terrible, but if you want to watch it out of sheer curiosity, do that at your own convenience. So what's next? I mean, there's his sister, right? His sister does literally the same thing from maybe, from what I saw, it looked like 50 feet, maybe. The dragon is like flying around and all these littler demons are like pecking at its eye. So she just takes this fucking knife on this rope and just chucks it in a perfect straight line that just hits all the demons. Like it just slams right into the pile of demons on this thing's eyeball and kills them all. And she pulls it back like it's not a problem. She's got the fucking arm of a goddamn quarterback, right? This thing goes far. She just goes whoop, and it just launches perfectly. Again, I don't know if they have mystical powers. I don't fucking understand it. Somebody make it make sense. But again, because she is a woman, she gets to do this thing perfectly. Shang-Chi doesn't. Shang-Chi never gets to do anything perfectly. He does things wrong. He makes mistakes. He does things badly. This leads into my next point, which are women are great and men are stupid in this universe. Apparently, the father is like Wu, right? Shang-Chi's father. He is a conquering warlord who then gets his ass handed to him by a woman and then falls in love with her. So the idea that she tamed him, and again, I'm not against that idea. Like the idea that they fall in love, they could do it like they fell in love because he is attracted to power and always has been. So when she beat him, he viewed her as an equal. Nope, that's not in the writing because the reason I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but the reason that Kelly, Shang-Chi's sister, was not allowed to train with her brother when they were younger was because she was a lady, and the women aren't allowed to train in the Ten Rings, I guess. I don't know. And it was that her father said that every time he looked at her, she reminded him of her mother, right? And that's why he ignored her and couldn't look at her. Bullshit. That's not how grieving parents work. There are a few times when a grieving parent will blame their child, right? Very, very specific circumstances, none of which. And the fact is, he actually blamed Shang-Chi more. The fact that she was actually jealous that Shang-Chi was being beaten and being brainwashed into being an assassin. She was jealous that he was being beaten. She wanted to be beaten too, because she was just as tough as the boys. Shit you not. That is her character. So yeah, doing that. But then again, like that's just how they set up Wu. They set up Wu to be an asshole for no reason. When he has no logical reason to be that way. Let's see. What else? I mean, with the men are stupid thing. The what is it? What is it? I had another example in my mind a minute ago. So yeah, Shang-Chi trying to do stuff. Oh, like it's just a lot of nonsense, really, that like the women have to be doing all the things. Katie is driving the bus in the bus scene to keep it on the road. Katie is then driving the getaway vehicle and driving them through the forest. We already discussed that what's her face, Kelly, she's in the backseat. She knocks the guy out. She saves Katie from the fall. That kind of shit. It's like men are fucking up and are stupid and are inferior and aren't doing the thing correctly. And there was even a point where it was very heavily implied about gender lines where the I think was it the aunt or Kelly, I don't know, one of the women in the village was talking to the guy with the sword for an arm and was like, "Hey, we need to team up and stop those demons that are coming over here." And the dude literally just says, "No, we don't. We're better than you." Some shit like that. Like he literally says something to that effect. And to which afterwards, obviously, the masked guy that I mentioned earlier gets his soul sucked out, and then he pulls the 180 immediately of, "Oh yeah, we should probably work together." Like, really, dude? You're gonna just like that, snap back. But because again, that was a moment where the woman was needed to be proven right and the man needed to be proven wrong. Again, that one might be a little bit reaching, I'll admit. But when you compare it with everything else in this film, it really starts to come through. And again, we haven't even gotten to the heaviest part of it, right? And we're about to get there. We said that women were doing things better than the men. And to sum up the feminist propaganda message here, the after credits sequence, like the real one, not the like there was the one with Bruce Banner and Captain Marvel and Wong, and then the real after credits, right, which sets up the sequel to Shang-Chi, is that his sister is not, he thinks she's staying behind at the compound at the end of the film to dismantle the 10 rings and get rid of everything. No, wrong. She literally takes over the 10 rings from her father. Like, it's literally like not even like taking over. She literally just snatches it up, which makes no fucking sense because by all rules of the 10 rings, it should be that Shang-Chi, since he's the one who has the 10 rings, should be in charge of the 10 rings because that's how their power structure was formed. But sure, fuck it. Who cares? Let the woman be in charge. And the thing is, it's supposed to be this message of like, now we're going to do things this way. They do this shot of her sitting on this throne and looking at, literally it's mimicking the shot from the beginning of the movie where her father was sitting on the throne in the temple watching his men train. Now she's sitting on her throne, and she's watching the people out in the courtyard train. And it's women and men now. Now there's women, right? They're training too, and I don't know why, but one of them was wearing a mask. Like, I'm not even sure if it was like a ninja mask or like a COVID mask type thing, like a cloth mask. But it was like this cheetah print thing. I don't know. And half the women looked like they were just wearing yoga pants. I don't know what the fuck that was about. But the weirdest thing is, like, earlier in the film when they were at the village, the aunt explained to her that, yeah, the men and the women train together, right, as equals, right? And that was the point they were trying to make. But then when Kelly gets home, right, Shang-Chi's sister, when Kelly gets home and takes over the 10 rings, in this courtyard sequence, excuse me, dry throat, in this courtyard sequence, she has the women on one side of the courtyard and the men on the other, right? So it's half and half, split down the middle. None of that speaks equality to me at all. That's not equal. That's segregation, right? You're literally saying the men and the women are in two different sections. Now, it could have been, like, it's really weird too because the women were training with this like staff sword weapon that had some blades on it, but it was kind of like big, like a bow staff. And then the men were training with like the hook swords, right? Which for some reason are not electric anymore. They just look like normal swords. So I guess maybe she's going like total lethal mode. I don't know. But like that would be even weirder if it was based on the weapon stuff, because then that's like the men are training with the hook swords and the women are training with the staves. Okay, I'm not sure why, but okay. So it misses the idea of equality. It keeps doing this dolly out shot, and it shows that some of her henchmen are now installing solar panels and a radar dish and a fucking 21st century shit, right? And the symbolism here is that the new is replacing the old, and that the old misogynistic way of the 10 rings is being updated and modernized and run by a woman who knows what she's doing. That's the symbolism in that shot. And if you don't fucking believe me, if you're still on the fence about this, when the shot finishes, you see the entire compound. On the right side of the frame, there is this wall, this giant wall, and on this giant wall is a giant graffiti art of, like, there's little bits of graffiti art kind of around the compound now, which, sure, I guess, because the last place she ran, like the Fight Club place, she had graffiti around. I guess she likes it. I don't know. Don't know why, but okay. There's this giant graffiti mural of a woman, I'm not kidding, standing in this like tracksuit, black ninja outfit, something like that, like just standing there in some kind of triumphant pose or something. And this is a 30-foot graphic on the side of a wall of a triumphant woman. What more do you fucking want from this film to be... when I say it's feminist propaganda, I'm not kidding. And I'm not saying it as like, oh, women are bad and men are better. I'm not fucking saying that. I'm saying this film takes the opposite position, where they are literally actively showing, like, we are saying that women are good and men are stupid and bad, and this woman should be in charge, and because she's earned it or whatever, when she really didn't do anything. She didn't do anything in her life that was worth her leading the 10 rings. She was never really badass enough unless she maneuvered the whole situation, which was not implied at any point ever. And if they try to retcon it and say that it was, I'm gonna call total fucking horseshit. So yeah, there's that's it for the message. Let me get a final sip of water here. Just so I'll have the proper hydration and get into the last bit. We're going on 2 hours here, so I'll try and wrap this up. But these are just some quick things. So this is the shit that made no sense category, where I have no fucking clue why any of this happened, but makes no sense. Okay, so Shang-Chi's sister teaches herself, right? We've been over this, where her dad wouldn't let her train or ignored her or some combination thereof, right? She's not only a bad like you're a bad father and men are mean type thing. Okay, cool. So she trains herself, which is pretty fucking stupid and impossible for her to be that good from training herself without anyone noticing, by the way. They established that in Shang-Chi's flashback when he's doing his childhood thing. So basically, when he's telling Katie about it, and it goes in the flashback, um, there's just some parts cut in where his sister is training too, like on her own, which is like, okay, look, hey, look, the woman's doing something too. All right, I don't fucking care. Like, this is Shang-Chi. This is called Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, not Shang-Chi's sister. Okay? It's not Shang-Chi and the Golden Girls or whatever. I don't know. I don't know feminist shit. Just insert some feminist icon, whatever, in to make that joke work. But this is Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, right? His name is on the fucking thing. His face is on the posters. It's his goddamn movie. Why are you in his flashback? Get out of here. You need your own flashback. You could have had your own flashback. Here's how it could have been. It could have been, here's how you do it. You could have just shown Shang-Chi's flashback from his perspective. Then, when Katie and Kelly are talking later, Kelly could have shown her flashback of the same events from a different angle. Film the scene twice. I know that's going against all known Hollywood convention of just shooting a scene and moving the fuck along. But if you shoot a scene twice, it gives you cooler shit to work with. Go shoot the scene twice, and then when you shoot it the second time, you shoot the exact same thing, but from her perspective. And then you can show her training herself, which is still fucking asinine. You should have had her get trained after she ran away into the real world. That would have made more sense. But no. Okay. She trains herself. But you need to separate those two things. Shang-Chi's flashback is from his perspective, and then her perspective is her flashback. Because that's how human beings work. When we think of what happened to us, we think of what happened to us when we tell a story. We do not consider the perspective of others. That is not rude. That is not unethical. That is not mean to say. It's just a fucking fact of life. Anytime you're telling a story, you ain't thinking about anyone in that story but you. You're thinking about what you saw, what you experienced, and how it relates to the conversation. That's it. Moving on from that, Shang-Chi's father tells us about the Mandarin, right? And like he brings back the Mandarin from Iron Man 3, and he's telling us about Travis, right? The guy that impersonated the Mandarin. And there's this pointless dinner conversation where he's like talking about like names are important. Let me tell you about this guy that named himself the Mandarin, and he named himself after an orange. Isn't that silly? Type like that was the whole fucking conversation. Pointless dinner scene, absolutely pointless. Added nothing. So then, obviously, later on when you see Travis, since you've already established that Wu, the real Mandarin, knows about the fake Mandarin. And yes, Wu is the Mandarin. I don't care what the fuck they want to call him, Wen Wu or whatever the hell his name is. I've had many names, Conquer or whatever the fuck. I don't care. Your name is the Mandarin. You're supposed to be the Mandarin. Anyway, but Wu, like, that just ruins it because then they run into Travis later, and when they do, it's not much of a shock. If he hadn't told us about it and reminded us about Travis when we saw him later, instead of me saying, "Oh, don't you fucking dare bring him back," right? I literally said that in theater. I'm not kidding. The reveal would have been, "Oh shit, wait, that's Travis. Oh, what's he doing here?" Then his long exposition I would have given a shit about of like, "What's he doing here? I don't understand." There you go. Next. Let's see. Oh, the airplane scene, right? So Shang-Chi's flashback is literally like when Katie said, "You'll explain on the plane," and they go to get on the plane. It cuts from her saying that to the flashback happening. And then the flashback is literally interrupted by a flight attendant asking them what they want for their meal, making some awkward moment of like them wanting the vegetarian option, but the vegetarian option is no longer available, so they just have the beef. Haha. Like, okay, there was no point to that. Then they have this conversation about he changed his name to Sean. By the way, he calls himself Sean when he's in San Francisco. And she's just like, like she's mispronouncing his name, which is fucking cringe as all hell because she is from a Chinese American family. I don't even care if her Cantonese whatever speak is bad, like her whatever speech they use. I don't care if it's bad. She would still know how to pronounce Shang-Chi. Like that's his fucking name. Say it correctly. Everyone knows how to say Shang-Chi or Shang-Chi, whatever the fuck you want to call him. Zhong-Zhong-Chi or whatever the fuck. Like how are they pronounced it? I don't know because I'm not Asian. I don't come from that culture. I don't have people around me who speak it. In the film, her grandmother is literally speaking the language. Her mother is speaking the language and has an accent when she speaks English. This means that Katie understands the language. That's the thing, is she knows the language because several characters speak the language in the film and she always knows what they're saying and she replies in English to what they're saying. So she completely comprehends what they're saying, which means she understands the pronunciations. It's the dumbest, most cringe fucking thing like in the film. It's so stupid. So yeah, it just interrupts the flashback. It didn't even get to end the flashback really, and then it like picks the flashback up way later in the film in some dramatic moment that's really not dramatic at all. That's the part where later on in the film where Shang-Chi actually confesses to Katie that he lied to her and was like, "Oh no, I did kill the guy. Like I said, I didn't kill the guy. No, I did kill the guy that killed my mother." As if that's not something to be proud of. You should be proud of that. You safeguarded your family. You avenged your family name and you upheld your family's honor. That is a good thing, especially when your father taught you that that's a good thing over many years. He literally beat it into you, but you're going to act like the crybaby you are. Okay, cool. Next, Shang-Chi should have drowned. This is an absolute deal breaker for me in this film. His father, right, whoops Shang-Chi's ass into the dirt. Why? He has the 10 rings. He's more powerful, and Shang-Chi is a fucking dumbass. He beats the shit out of Shang-Chi and throws him into the lake. Shang-Chi is unconscious. He is sinking to the bottom of the lake. And he is down there for several minutes. They cut back to the village, right? And people are fighting and talking and whatever for several minutes. Like a minimum of 3 minutes, something like that. Minimum 3 minutes, probably closer to 5 or 6. And then we get back to Shang-Chi in the water. And then now, you could maybe argue that it was like cross-cutting through time, so like maybe when he got thrown in. But that's the thing is, he is in the water when his father reaches the wall and starts beating the wall that's all the way on the other side of the lake. And the characters comment on that. They see that, which means that at that point in time, Shang-Chi was actively drowning. He was in the river unconscious, or the lake, whatever. He's under the water unconscious, sinking to the bottom. He should have been dead, and there is no amount of mystical nonsense that you could pull. He is a normal human being who got knocked into a lake and knocked into next week. That dude is drowning, and he is fucking dead. But then they linger on this for such a long fucking time with like. And then they have this flashback of his mom being like, "Oh, don't be afraid, blah, blah." Before she dies, of course, she's telling him this little speech of like, "As long as you have the heart of the dragon, our people will protect you." Some shit like that. I don't know. And then the dragon comes out of the lake. It's like a water dragon. That was kind of cool. I like the dragon. The dragon was kind of a cool bit. Really should have played a more major role than just kind of fighting the other big monster. But all right, cool. But yeah, he should have been dead. He should have been dead by all logic, even by the film's own logic. He should have been dead in so many ways. But fuck realism, right? We've already established that fuck realism in this film, except when we want things to feel real, but they feel artificial because we don't know what realism is supposed to be, because we're stupid. Okay. So let's see. His father finding the waterfall, right? So to get to Ta Lo, the other dimension, you can just drive through this waterfall to get to it. There's no real guard or anything. Like, you're supposed to go through this, like, forest in a particular path, or else the forest eats you, which is kind of cool. But the waterfall is in a clearing that has no sky cover at all, which means that his father, for many years, just didn't have a scout out there in a helicopter looking down on the place and looking for any area of the forest that might be different. Because if he would have seen the waterfall at the end near the mountain, like near the mouth of a cave. And he would have said like, "Oh, there it is," and then he would have been able to get to Tallow just fine. Like, I don't fucking understand. Like that again, shit that made no sense. It's okay, doesn't make sense, but all right, we're moving past that. In a like story sequence where his aunt, right, Shang-Chi's auntie, is telling them the story of like how they sealed away the demon soul sucker thing, right? It's got they made this great mural on the wall, nice carved like high relief mahogany. Looks awesome, looks great. Not sure why they have it, but they have it. It's pretty. It's a nice art installation. And she's telling this whole tale while the camera is like following them walking down this thing, and you see the pretty art. Like, okay, cool, like typical shit. She claims, and there's this shot of a city skyline with like skyscrapers and shit, and she was like, "Yeah, we had Tallow like was fucking advanced as shit. Like the part you see here is just like one little village, and we had like way more advanced cities and stuff back in the day before the Demon Soul Sucker things arrived. It has a name. It's like the Dwelling Darkness or some shit, but that is a stupid name. So Demon Soul Sucker thing just sounds much better. So yeah, they were like, yeah, our cities were so advanced before this demon thing showed up. And then the very next panel of this like art installation shows their army fighting back against the demons with like spears and bow and arrows, which I guess okay, they made that from dragon scales, so that makes sense. But what I don't understand is, did this city not have any sort of high tech weaponry or anything like that? I don't know. Because then the Guardian shows up later in the story. I don't know. It's weird. Like, why didn't they have better weapons? They claim to be so advanced. Why didn't you have better weaponry? Like, to combat something like that. But if it can't be hurt by mortal weapons, then you got to use the dragon scales. Like, okay, that might make sense. But I don't know. That's just a thing that didn't make sense to me. Was that your civilization is advanced, but then the very next thing on your little triptych is that your guys are using swords and spears and bows and arrows to try and combat these things. Like, all right, sure. Um, Speaking of swords, the guy with the sword for an arm, right? At one point, when they're about to fight the demons, his sword doesn't work because it's just a mortal, like normal piece of metal. So he chops it off and puts on a dragon blade. And man, it was awfully convenient that when he chopped off his own blade, he was able to take the dragon blade and weld it to his arm perfectly, and it was a perfect match. Man, that was really, really fucking convenient for him, huh? Because otherwise, he would have had just one sword in the fight, but now he's got one on his arm, and he's holding one with the other arm. So now he's dual wielding. That's really good for him. Convenient, right? These convenient coincidences are apparently completely okay, according to this film. I don't understand. So yeah, that's Shang-Chi, guys. I mean, I went over everything, so now it's time for final verdict. Just to recap, the narrative was loose and over-explained. Several plot points were hand-waved away. A lot of shit did not make sense in the plot other than to just get shit to move forward. People were dying that you didn't give a shit about, but you're supposed to, but you feel no love for these people. You literally don't have time to know anybody or like anybody in this film. Like, it's just on. The only person I even came close to liking was Shang-Chi's father. Like, Wen-Wu was the only dude that was like, I kind of sympathized with him in his plight of like wanting his love back. That's about it. And that in and of itself is a failure. That's not even a good thing because the dude was the villain. He abused his son. Don't make me feel for that guy. I don't want to feel for that guy. He's a bad guy. Yeah, let's see what else is there. The cinematography, we talked about that. Camera cuts were awful. A lot of the shots were just not set up correctly. The fights were, it seems like their choreography had well intentions, but they just didn't capture it on film or didn't do it correctly. They didn't pre-visit enough. I don't know. The characters were all one-dimensional or toxic as hell. Didn't like them at all. Again, Shang-Chi's father is the only one that I had any sort of relationship with. I sympathized with that man on some level. Not enough to cry when he died, but I didn't really because I didn't really give a shit. But there it is. Yeah, so then the messaging, the whole feminist propaganda angle, I've explained that in detail. Again, if you think I'm bullshitting you, if you think I'm grasping at straws here and making shit up, I'm not. It's all in the film as I have related. It is in every way. Some of it you could argue I may have been reading into it a bit too much, but when you put it's kind of like a puzzle. When you look at just one of the puzzle pieces, you don't see the blue sky and the grass and the field and the flowers that make up the whole picture of the puzzle. But when you put all the pieces together, all of a sudden the pattern makes sense and it forms a whole image. It's not any one individual thing, although some are more heavily weighted than others. It's all of these things combined that make up the feminist propaganda angle of this film. This girl power nonsense that is like, some people thought it was bad in Captain Marvel for the girl power stuff, and some people thought it was like crazy in Infinity War. I personally didn't mind the moment in Infinity War when all the girls got together to go get the gauntlet and get it from Peter Parker and be like, yeah, we saved the day, and like get it over to Tony. I personally didn't mind that part. I didn't really care in that moment, because it was just like, all right, yeah, it's convenient, but no more convenient than, you know, some other stuff. But this movie went so fucking hard on the girl power angle. Like, and again, I have nothing wrong with a strong female character. I do not care if your character is strong and female. In fact, I love strong female characters. They're awesome. But none of these women were anywhere close to someone like Samantha Carter, or from Stargate SG-1, or Commander Ivanova from Babylon 5, or just pretty much any of these strong women. Gina Carano playing her character. I don't remember her character's name in The Mandalorian, but that was a strong female character. She had her own goals, her own motivations. Um, that's just like, if you want to write a strong female, do it, but do it fucking correctly. Do not pander to it. Uh, if the man has to go through hardships to earn what he has, so does a woman. So like, and again, Mary Sue is not really like that much of a gendered thing. It's that, like, in this particular case, the women happen to be, like, happen to be the Mary Sues of the film, and a lot of them were. And fine, whatever. But it can apply to a man as well. There are plenty of Mary Sues from the male of the male persuasion in other films. Just this one was heavy, heavy on the female cast. There were a lot of women in this film, and all of them were kind of fucking awful to one degree or another. They just kind of, either they were doing too much for their skill set, or they were just acting like complete jackasses. I don't know. Anyway, that's that shit. The shit that made no sense. We just went over that. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I didn't cover. I'm just kind of like taking a second and recapping the whole film in my mind to see if there's anything we didn't cover that would have been nice. No, there was quite a few callbacks to other films that really didn't need to be in the film, except they put it in there just to be like, hey, the MCU's a thing. Hey, remember, there's more going on. Hey, this is the setup. Remember, like, I don't know, like it's just it's sad. This movie, I wasn't optimistic for this movie. I wasn't super stoked, but I was like, hey, a martial arts, MCU movie, that could be cool. No, I was lied to. The marketing fucking lied. Simu Liu, that dude was promoting this movie hard as hell, and I'm not gonna say he lied, but that dude was like, this is the greatest fucking thing ever, and now we're gonna make this great role model for little Asian kids to look up to his representation. Shit, I'm paraphrasing. That's not actually what he said word for word, but it's pretty damn close to what he was trying to get across with his tweets and shit. And the absolute pettiness of people uh surrounding the film. I think Simu himself actually, like, on Instagram or something, posted like a bunch of thumbnails from people like the Critical Drinker and stuff, people with a bunch of thumbnails on YouTube that were like, hey, it could the movie flop, this is going to be a failure. And those people, like, a lot of them were just reporting on it from mainstream stuff. So mainstream sites and stuff like Screen Rant and stuff, they were the ones saying we could probably flop and it might be a failure. And then the YouTube guys were literally just commenting on that and agreeing or disagreeing, or just talking about that news in general. So of course they're covering it. That's what their channels are about. Um, but yeah, petty shit like that, like that's the worst part of it. Is the marketing for this was all over the fucking place, and it was, oh my god. Anyway, to wrap things up, I want to end on about 2 hours 10 minutes here. Big long one, but holy shit, this was, I went in depth for this. I went in depth and basically gave you the whole movie right here, so you don't have to waste your money and go out and see this. Final verdict for the just scale 1 out of 10, or not 1 out of 10, but the 1 to 10 scale. This gets a 2 out of 10. This is the only Marvel movie, including Thor: Dark World. Okay, and that movie was boring as fuck, but at least it kind of did some stuff. Thor: Dark World was bad. This was fucking atrocious. This movie sucked beyond measure. This was not the way to start the new Phase 4. So, or Phase 5. Are they in Phase 5? I don't get it. I don't know what stage of the MCU they're going into, but this was supposed to be their first foray into it. This was supposed to be their foot in the door, like opening it up, being like, "Welcome to the new Marvel." No, I don't want it. If the rest of the films are going to be like this, I want no part of them. So 2 out of 10. Do not see this movie. Do not spend money on this movie. Even if the movie is free and you are morbidly curious about some of the points I've made, or like you just want to look at it for the pure spectacle of shit all over the screen. Like there was so much shit during action sequences, I had no idea what was going on. If you're into that, and you can access it for free, go ahead. You spend a single cent on this movie, and I'm gonna question you as a consumer of like, you can spend your money on whatever you want. Like you have the right to buy whatever you want. I have the right to question what the fuck you were buying and how you're using your purchasing power as a consumer. But that's a whole other discussion. This thing's a 2 out of 10. Trash fucking film. The only reason it even gets 2 points is one, there were some genuinely okay moments, not even that great, but some things that got a laugh out of me or I thought looked kind of cool. Like Travis, Morris, the little fluffy dog thing. Some of the fight stuff, like 1 or 2 moments in the fight scenes where it actually made an impact, and then the opening fight sequence, where he's just whooping ass with the 10 rings. That was a cool sequence. Other than that, no, nothing else. This is Marvel through and through. Not to say the other films were bad. They weren't. They were not this bad. This is what I've been considering Marvel to be for a while, which is all of these films will work to some degree or another, right? No matter how bad the film is, it will sell just because it has the Marvel and the Disney seal of approval, and it has the budget to back it up. These films are technically proficient, right? And they work for what they're doing, but there is zero substance to them. There's nothing real, there's nothing genuine, there's nothing interesting or good about them. They exist for the sake of existence, and that's it. That is Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. And yeah, that's all I got for you guys. So I'm trying to think if there's any more final thoughts I have on this. The final verdict is 2 out of 10. We've covered everything from the narrative all the way down to the shit that made no sense and everything in between. I've recapped the movie in basically the same amount of time. You watching this is probably giving you more information and a clearer like understanding of what the film was doing than actually watching the film. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, kudos if you made it this far. If you watched the whole 2 hour thing, thank you. Like this is an insane amount of time, and I'm not gonna cut a moment of it because this is just pure visceral review right here, boys. This isn't some 20-minute hot take. This is in depth. So yeah, I mean, if you guys watch this, then there you go. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around. I don't really have anything for you other than what I would suggest. It's what I'm doing going forward. I will spend no money on Marvel movies for a minimum of 3 films. They have lost my business for the moment, and I will give them no credit, no attention, and no interest for the next 3 films minimum. And the next 3 films being, I believe it goes Eternals, and then Spider-Man, like No Way Home. And then after that, I think it's Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Yes, where he teams up with Scarlet Witch. So the thing that I'm looking for is for Disney to redeem this. Is I realize like the Eternals is already fucked. So I just want the Eternals to be decent and make a little bit of sense, which it already doesn't. But we'll see how it goes. If it's okay and it makes a little bit of sense, if it's at least a 5 out of 10, okay, that starts to be off on the right foot. No Way Home better be perfect. I better be giving that thing a 9 out of 10. If I'm not, they are fucking up severely. Because that shit, if they like Toby and Andrew, if you're gonna put Toby Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland all together in a Spider-Man movie with Doc Ock and Green Goblin and Electro, and you start the Sinister Six off, and it's a whole fucking thing. If that's what you're doing with that movie, great. And if you do it right, if you do it like perfectly, great. I'm a little fucking concerned after I saw the trailer because Peter was acting like a little bitch, but here we are. And then Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness. I've recently learned that I was not aware of this, but apparently Sam Raimi has actually been brought in to direct Multiverse of Madness, which is great because Sam Raimi, of course, did the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy, and it was absolutely god tier. As long as they leave him the fuck alone and let him do what he needs to do to make that film cool, I'm all for it. If they want to enter that as a new era of Marvel. So to recap, this movie is a 2 out of 10. It is technically proficient, but it has zero substance in any way. For the future, what I am doing and what I suggest you are doing is essentially boycotting the movies until they have better films, basically. And I'm looking for the Eternals to be decent, not great, not terrible, just decent. That's all I need. And I need No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home has to be perfect. And Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness has to be perfect. If those three things are not fucking like if those 2.5 things are not up there for me, I'm sorry, but like Marvel will be dead, at least to me. Some people, and I don't want to insult anybody, so I'll just say some people, certain people, will go to the movies and watch it. And if you're a fan of Fast and the Furious 9, if you're a fan of the Fast and Furious series as it is now with like Fast 9 and they're going into space with cars and shit, you will probably not give a fuck. You will probably eat that shit up and go to all the new Marvel movies. And I hope you enjoy them. I really do. I don't want you to have a bad time in the movies. I just want the movies to be fucking good so that we can all have a good time at the movies. Anywho, that was my review for Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. If you liked the video, then do the usual. Like, subscribe, check out my streams. I don't know when the streams are coming back, but check them out. And I will see you guys in the next video. Reaper the Rager, signing off.